Yo, what is going on, guys? Today we're diving into the metaverse and we're going to be building out our first ever Web3 messaging dApp. This is a decentralized messaging app with real-time one-to-one chat features. Get excited, let's jump into the features of today's video. We're going to implement messaging functionality between users inside of today's video. You're going to be able to log in and log out with your crypto wallets using MetaMask. On top of that, you're going to have your own custom avatars generated from your address of your crypto wallet. Finally, I'm going to show you how to actually deploy this app to Vercel so you can add it to your portfolio and showcase it to the world. Let's jump into the tech stack of today's video. Starting things off with Web3. We're going to be powering today's build with Moralis.io, an amazing Web3 platform which makes today's video completely possible. This is the perfect opportunity to polish and showcase your ReactJS skills. In fact, we're going to be using the Next.js framework to go ahead and optimize our application in today's video. On top of that, it's completely responsive. We've achieved this with Tailwind CSS, so a perfect video to go ahead and dive into Tailwind CSS and all of its benefits. You're going to have authentication and login with MetaMask through Moralis, so all of this is going to be taught in today's video. And finally, you're going to learn how to deploy your app to Vercel, the platform for Next.js. Without further ado, Papa fam, smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the little bell notification icon so you don't miss any of these golden gems, and enjoy today's video. Let's jump into it. If you like the design, by the way, smash the thumbs up button. You're going to build all of this, right? So you can click log into the metaverse. And you can see my MetaMask pops up. Now, as you can see, and for anyone looking, yes, I have several wallets. So this is one wallet. It has got some Ethereum in, right? And again, it's secure. So this is why I don't mind showing this on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and click on sign, right? And this will actually go ahead and sign me into the app using my wallet. And you can see it says, welcome to the Papa Fam Metaverse, right? Papa React. If I click change your username, I can go ahead and change it to like Papa React 123, right? Or something like that. And then you can see Papa React 123. And I also get a nice little generated avatar based on my username. All right, so this is powered by Moralis. And then go ahead and type in, this is dope. And we have a message pop up. Now, I want to go ahead and show you an example of if I go ahead and run this in a separate browser. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my local host. I'm going to switch my wallet. So you can have several wallets, as I mentioned before. So if I go ahead and click on a separate wallet, so now I'm technically a different person in this browser. If I click log into the metaverse now, it will log in with that wallet. So you can see this has got a different balance. If I click sign now, you'll see that this is now Elon Musk, right? So I've actually given it that username, but you can see the message came through here and it says Papa React said 123. So I can say, hi there, Elon here. And if I send a message, enter, we have a real-time chat, right? So this is all using Web3 tech. Moralis.io is powering this up. So I'm going to show you how to build all of this. And as I mentioned before, this is a real-time chat. You can have as many people as you want here. It's going to be like a group chat for Web3. So let's go ahead. And this is dope. And this is not using Firebase. It's using the Web3 similar alternative, which is called Moralis. Okay, so as you can see, it says you're up to date. Very nice user interface, and as I mentioned before, it is responsive. So you have a nice kind of responsive design flow in here, and you guys are going to be learning how to build this with that MetaMask login. And this is honestly going to be your perfect way of getting into the Web3 space, because once you're familiar with Moralis, you can then use Moralis to go and do really cool stuff like building your own NFT marketplace. You can go ahead and make your own smart contracts. So right now, we're going to go ahead and build this, the metaverse login. But what we're going to do right now, guys, is go ahead and actually set everything up so we can actually crush this build today, right? But we're actually going to be using Moralis. Now, if Ivan is watching, he's an awesome guy. He pretty much runs things over at Moralis, but this is a platform which is incredible for Web3. It's essentially Firebase for Web3. They handle our authentication. They'll be handling our database for all the off-chain data transactions that are going to be happening. And guys, the thing I want to mention is this is your ultimate introduction to Web3, okay? So once you have this in your portfolio, it's incredibly easy to then go ahead and crush it and build something like an NFT marketplace, smart contracts. The motto over at Moralis is one line of code, and I truly believe in that anthem, right? The whole point of using a platform is it should bring simplicity to your life. Moralis does exactly that, and this is why we chose to use them, okay? So you want to click on the login at the top right here, and once you're in, you're going to go to the admin panel. So once you're over here, guys, you should see the servers section. You want to go ahead and click create a new server. And we're going to go ahead and actually choose the testnet server. Now, when you're building a Web3 app, let's talk about something like Ethereum. Ethereum has the mainnet. Now, the mainnet, if you didn't know, is where all the real breathing transactions live. This is where all the main things are happening. When you hear about somebody buying a NFT for 5 million or God knows, like 500 million or something like that, some billionaire ape, this is where they're doing that transaction most of the time. It's in the Ethereum blockchain, right? So in the mainnet server is where all the real transactions happen, but there's essentially high costs of doing transactions on that server. So when we're doing test work, so development work, so we want to actually develop on the testnet server, okay? The testnet server is going to be the one which we can, it's got loads of dummy transactions on it. So this is going to be where we can develop against. Now, if you want to do even faster development or literally fee-free, you can go to a local dev chain server. That's why it's kind of in a hierarchy from top to bottom. And that's going to be running on your local machine. Now we're going to make it easy. We're going to do testnet server, give it a name. So in this case, Metaverse Challenge, which does the trick. We're going to select a region, so London, and then we're going to go ahead and select a network. Now in this case, I'm going to click Ethereum Robston, right? But you can actually see that you can build things with networks like a Polygon, Avalanche, and to be honest with you, Polygon is an awesome choice for the fact that the gas fees, which is essentially the cost of transactions, is essentially very cheap. So looking pretty promising for Polygon, right? Then you click on add instance. Now what this is doing is it will set up a server for you. So I've already gone ahead and set one up here, and you can see it gives us some allocation, it gives us some resources. So if you guys can see right now, oh sorry guys, sorry, I didn't show my screen. So at this point we're going to go ahead and click on the testnet server, and then we go ahead and type in Metaverse Challenge, like so. Okay, now once you're here, select region London, and then you can select a chain over here, right? So Ethereum, right? And then we click on add instance. So once you've done that, it will create this server for us. You can see it's an actual running server. Now what I want you to do here is click dashboard, okay? And we can also keep this open for future. Now that's our Moralis setup, okay? It's kind of like, it's very simple to do, right? We've already set that up. Now what we're gonna do now is move over to some React and Next.js. Next.js is a framework for React. React is the most booming JavaScript library right now, so you should be learning React. And what better way to use React than in a framework that is also booming, that is also extremely powerful. And if you want to see more information about Next.js or any use cases, check out my videos on Sonny Sanger, the YouTube page that you're watching right now. We have tons of them, but let's continue on with our first setup of our Next.js app. So what we're going to be doing is using Next.js plus Tailwind. Now there's an awesome sort of template that we can use from the guys over at Vercel, who are the creators of Next.js, and it's this command over here. So when you use React, we might be familiar with something called create React app. And now we're going to be using something called create Next app. This is essentially the same thing, but it creates a Next.js framework application for us. So it's going to be using React, but it's all going to be set up in the Next.js configuration. And what we're actually going to do is extend it with this kind of template or example, as they call it here, and with Tailwind CSS. This will set up Tailwind CSS version 3.0 for us, right? So you can see the example shows how to use Tailwind CSS 3.0 with us. So we're going to go ahead and actually copy this right now, and you can use npx or yarn, it's up to you. And I'm going to go ahead and actually do the following. So I'm going to type in terminal. And over here, I'm going to make this big so you guys can see it. I'm going to go into my documents folder right now. So I'm going to say CD documents. Make sure you're in a folder which makes sense for you. I'm going to pop it here. So I'm going to paste, but I'm not going to hit enter just yet. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change the final name over here because that's your project name. So here I'm going to say Metaverse Challenge, and I'm going to say YouTube, right? So that way I know it's my YouTube build, right? So if I go ahead and hit enter now, this will set up our first Next.js app, okay? So hopefully this is a good pace for you guys. Let me know in the comments right now. Smash the thumbs up button if the pace is good and if you want me to go ahead and carry on this pace. But we're going to go ahead and install all the dependencies and packages to get our first Next.js app up and running, okay? So at this point, what we can do is I'm going to go ahead and just wait a second for that to go ahead and close. Set up now. heading back over, we have CD Metaverse Challenge. So I need to go into the directory that is just created for me. So I'm going to hop into there, enter. And as you can see, I'm now in that directory, right? So I'm going to type in code dot. Now, if this command doesn't work for you, manually open up a VS Code and do the following. Just go to File, Open, or Open Folder, and then go to that directory. Or if you want that nice code command, Command-Shift-P, type in install, and you can see install code in command in path. Now, I'm using the beta version, hence code insiders. But if you want yours should say code, and then that will give you that nice little functionality that I just showed you before. Okay, let me know if you're keeping up with me right now. We have a lot of viewers right now. This is actually really incredible, the fact that everyone, despite all the technical stuff, they're coming back stronger than ever. So keep up with me, guys. This is awesome. All right, now before we get started, I want to do two things. I want to go to my extensions, and I want to make sure that you guys have got the tools that we need. Right, this is a React snippets tool which helps us build our functional components very fast. So go ahead and download that. It's going to be your best friend during this build. The next thing we want to do is we want to go to Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, install this. It's going to make life a hell of a lot easier. Okay, this will go ahead and give us the nice utility classes that Tailwind CSS provides, which means that when we're coding, we do not have to guess a bunch of stuff, right? It's going to help for us. So let's go over to the Explorer and let's click on Pages, Index. Now, what's really nice about this, guys, is that if you go over to the index, you can actually find something pretty cool that you might have not had inside of React without something like React Router. The pages actually corresponds to the different pages on your website. So index.js is typically our home page in web development. So if I want to go ahead and spin this app up, Command J, pull up my terminal, and I'm going to go ahead and actually cut off my old app, which is running right now. I'm going to go ahead and do npm run dev, and that will actually run my server in a development environment. Okay, so that looks pretty cool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run this, and I'm going to open it up in localhost 3000. So you can see this is what we get in front of us. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my screen. There we go. So at this point, what we're going to do is I'm going to pull my code on the side, Command B to hide the folders, Command J to hide the terminal. And I'm going to see, you see, this is what runs up on our app, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and delete all of the things inside of the main over here. So we're going to pop that off, hit save, and you can see now we just have the footer. So I'm going to grab the footer, get rid of the footer as well, hit save, boom, it looks nice, right? And now you can see we've got a fresh slate. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and actually clear a few things up. Now, as you can see in the top, it says create next app, right? It's very small, but you can see it says create next app. That actually is sort of configured over here inside of this new head tag, which is part of Next.js. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and type in Metaverse Challenge, right? Metaverse Challenge. And what's really nice here is that if you ever want to inject HTML inside of the head element, you can go ahead and use this nice Next.js head component and wrap your HTML that you wish to inject inside the head element. So in this case, I changed it to Metaverse Challenge, and now my tab has changed to the Metaverse Challenge. So it's very clean, very nice stuff. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give ourselves a clean slate by getting rid of all the class names, and under here I'll say H1 welcome to the Metaverse Challenge, right? So welcome, if I can spell, welcome to the Metaverse 5-day challenge. Papa Fam, there we go, and hit enter. Now you should see what I see, right? You should see this on the top left hand side of the screen. That means we're at the point that we need to be at. And I want to make sure that you guys get this right. So go to package.json, make sure you're using Tailwind CSS version 3. Okay, that means you've done everything correct. We have the latest and greatest tech. Okay, so once this is done, I now need to kind of move forward. First thing we're going to do now is we need to create our first component. On the login screen, right, on our home page, I want to show my login screen. And then we're going to have some cool logic later on where we actually determine if we should show the login component or the rest of the app. And what we're going to first do is create our login component. Okay, so in this case, what we're going to do is Command B. We're going to go ahead and close up our pages, click on package.json so you're at the correct level, create a new folder, and we're going to call it components. Okay, hit enter. Now inside the components, I'm going to create login.js. Now inside of login.js, I want to do _RFCE. Now what this means is create me a React functional component which is exported, and the underscore stands for the new syntax, which means that we don't have the import React from React at the top, right? So this is a nice little shorthand. That's what that ES7 extension was for. At this point, I can type in H1 and say I am the login screen. Okay, hit enter, and we don't see anything yet. Well, that's strange, but it makes sense because we've got the login component here, but we're not importing it into our actual page. So now to pull it in, I put in a component like so. I say login. Now I go to the end of N, control spacebar, and I get this nice little IntelliSense. I hit enter and I get this nice little autocomplete for me where it imports it. As you can see now, it says I am the login screen. Okay, if you like the videos, just all else, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and the bell notification icon. I think it's like 50% of you that aren't subscribed. I don't know why. Hit it, all right, and then hit the like button as well. That'll help push this video out to as many developers out there. It helps grow the Papa fam. Okay, so at this point, what we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna go ahead and move forward with the build. So we're gonna create our login screen. Okay, now the login screen is pretty cool in the sense of we actually have. I should have taken a screenshot of it, but we had that cool futuristic looking screen, right? Now that had an image in it and it had a button. So we're going to first go ahead and design it, then we're going to plug Moralis in, and then we're going to go ahead and upgrade it, right? So first thing I want to do is have a look at this div, right? So the first thing is this div. I want to make the background black, right? And we need to make the actual container relative. And that's because we're going to have some things which are going to be positioned inside of it. So you can see it is black right now. It looks pretty decent. And then we're going to go ahead and go back. Sorry, no, it's not going to be this one. Sorry, it's going to be the login component. We're going to go to our login component here. My mistake. And then we're going to click on class name, not children, class name. Wow. Okay. Class name. And there you go, background black relative. Cool. At this point, what I want to do is I'm going to go to my index.js, and you can see right now it's not taking up the full height. So what the first thing we need to do is go to our main container, which is surrounding our login, and do h of screen, which means it will take up the height of the screen. Okay, so in a second we'll go ahead and we'll mess around with this. We'll get it to work fully. Okay, actually no, at this point I don't think I do this. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to change it up because this is how we're going to do it afterwards. So I'm going to have it similar to a sort of toggle like structure. So let's go ahead and say const user equals false, right? So imagine we're not logged in. I'm going to have a sort of if condition which goes on, yeah? And let's actually say rather than user, let's say is authenticated, right? Is authenticated equals false. Now what we'll do is we'll say if you're not authenticated, then I want to return the login component. Okay, otherwise it will return the rest of the app, right? So at this point I don't need to say this, so I'm going to say h1 welcome to the app, right? And now you can see I am the login screen is over here, right? And let me actually sort of make life a bit easier because right now I can't see that, right? So let's do text white. We'll say text white, and you can see how nice Tailwind CSS is, right? But you can see if I'm not authenticated, I go to the login screen. If I change this to true, now I have the app, right? So you can see how we can kind of, you know, have this kind of switch, right? So that's going to be crucial for how we sort of style things afterwards, okay? So at this point, we're going to say if we're not authenticated, so we're forcing the login screen, then we can go ahead and build the login screen as we need to, okay? So at this point, we have the I am the login screen at the top, but we want to do something a bit more fun than this, right? We don't want to just have this kind of boring, just a picture that's kind of like sitting there like that, right? So what I want to first do is I'm going to have a div, right? And inside of this div, I'm going to have an image and a button, right? The image is going to be the background image, or the image actually here is going to be the Papa Fam logo. And then we're going to have a login to the metaverse button. And then underneath that, we're going to have another image, right? So here we'll say we'll have the Papa Fam logo plus the login button, right? And then underneath all of this, we'll have the actual background image. So here I put a div, and I'm going to put an image, which is the background, that nice futuristic background, okay? Smash the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video. I think we're going at a very good pace right now, right? So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the new Next.js image tag. Now, Next.js is great in many ways. It gives us a built-in router. It gives us all these kind of cool TypeScript support out the box with other stuff. But one thing that's really nice is web pages get slowed down so much by images not being optimized. We may think a JPEG is small, but it's not. So what we actually want to do is before we deliver it to the client, we actually optimize it with Next.js, right? We use their component, we pass it the source of the image, like the URL, and then it actually converts it to something like WebP, which is a hell of a lot smaller than any JPEG that we can get access to, okay? So at this point, I'm going to import the image component from Next.js. So let's go ahead and move to the top of the file, import it like so, hit save, and at the bottom over here now, I'm going to use the image component like this, okay? Now over here, I'm going to put in a source, and the source for this, we're going to go ahead and pass in a string. Now this string, I'm going to go ahead and get over here. Now I've shortened these strings to make them super easy for you guys to copy. It's links.papareact.com/55n. Now you can see we get this lovely red error screen, right? So I love these error screens. No, I don't. Everyone hates them, right? But what we're going to do now is actually go ahead and allow the image component access to the links.papareact.com domain. Now the reason why this is the case, if you just let anyone or any domain act like sort of optimized components, you can really damage your site, right? You should really only whitelist the domains that you know that you trust that you are allowing to be optimized. So in this case, I trust links.papareact.com because it's from me. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add that into our next config file. So the way we do that is we need to go ahead and create a file called next.config in the upper layer. So we say next.config.js. right? And then what we do here is we pop in the following bit of code. Okay, so we're going to have a module.exports equals this object. Now inside of this object you can pass loads of different kind of settings, one of which is the images, right, key. Inside of that you have an object with the domain key, right? Now here you have an array of whitelisted URLs. So we have two whitelisted URLs that we care about. One is for links.papareact.com and one is for the avatar.dicepairs.com, which is for that randomly generated image that you'll see in tomorrow's build. Okay, so this will allow us to actually pass it through. Now we still see an error screen. If we do Command J, you can see it says found a change in next.config.js. We need to go ahead and restart. So cut the server with Control C, do npm run dev and hit the start again, right? So you can see that went through, but we got another error. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to fix this one. This is the good behavior. We actually want this. At this point, we're going to type in, you need to either pass it width and height, or you have to say fill, right? So at this point, we're going to say layout fill, right? Now be careful when you use this, because if you don't do layout fill correctly, and you don't have relative here, it's gonna fill the entire screen, right? So you can see right here, it's kind of like stretched, but at the top, right? It's kind of like looking horrible right now. So what I want to do is I want that to actually use up the majority of the screen. So this div right here, which is holding the image, I'm gonna go ahead and make that the width full and the height of the screen. Right, and now you can see it's a lovely background color or cover. Yeah, the problem here is that looks stretched to me and that doesn't look nice, right? I don't know, that's not a circle to me. So at this point what we can do is there's a lovely attribute called object fit, right? Similar to the CSS attribute. Now here you can type in cover and boom, just like that, it will scale the image as we go ahead and make it bigger. You see that? So if it gets smaller, it just centers it, which is exactly what we want. Right, really nice screen that we've got looking right now. So already the app is looking a hell of a lot nicer than it was in the beginning, and we're not even that far in, right? So looking pretty good. Next thing I want to do is add in the PapaFam logo. So at this point I'm going to do the same thing, use the image tag, and I'm going to go ahead and pop in the following. So I'm going to give the source here the following, which is, again, I've shortened these URLs to make your life easy. It's going to be 3pi, right? So papareact.com/3pi. Again, you have to give it a width and height or layout fill. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and show you the width and height, right? Because this is going to be a fixed width and height. The width, let's give it 200. The height, let's give it 200 as well. And still we don't see it, right? And that's because we haven't given any style. Okay, we haven't given it actually any style. It doesn't know where the hell to show, and it's kind of just sitting in this random place right now, which we're not seeing on the screen. So at this point I need to go ahead and make this look better. So in this case, I'm going to click on the div, and what I want to do here is I have two elements inside of this div. So eventually let's actually put the button in right now. So here I'll say login to the metaverse, right? Metaverse. And for those of you who are hating right now and saying no, you can't log into the metaverse, you have a MetaMask wallet, right? So go to Decentraland and you can run in the metaverse now. Thank me later. There you go. All right, so you can go into the metaverse if you want. This is kind of a cool quirky app that is using Web3. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and continue on. So we've got the button right now, and again we can't see it, right? And this is strange. You know, you might be wondering what the hell is going on. So at this point what we need to do is go to the div, and I'm going to get rid of these comments right here and go here. Jay, are we good on the health check? Nice, going strong. All right, so at this point we've got class name, and over here what we're going to do now is go ahead and pop in the following rules, right? So I'm going to make it a flex container, and again we can't see anything just yet. I'm going to say flex column, right? So it's going to actually, by default, flex puts things in a row, right? But instead now I want to put in a column view, and what I want to do here is I want to make it absolute, which I'm going to absolutely position this element. As you can see, things are moving, right? But we're not seeing what we want to see. And that's because it's actually behind the image. So the first thing I need to do is Z50. And what this does is it brings it to the forward layer, right? Otherwise, what it was actually doing was it was behind the background, right? So in this case, we've got absolute Z50. And what I want to do is I want to center this element, okay? Now I want this on the sort of, height of 4/6. So I'm going to put it sort of somewhere around there, right? And I'm going to go ahead and do items center, justify, justify center as well. So these will center the elements, right? And then what I'm going to do, and obviously if I just left it, it would have gone right to the middle, but that's why I did height 4/6, right? So that looks pretty good. And then what I want to do is do a space. Well, actually right now we're forgetting one crucial thing. We gave it a height, we didn't give it a width. So we need to width to 4, and that's why it gets into the center. Now we're getting there, right? This is looking pretty good. Look at this, look, nice. Awesome stuff, right? So at this point we've got justify center, and now you can see the login to the metaverse right there, right? It's a bit too close to the other thing, right? And obviously I want to make it very simple for you guys to see that. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that white text. So what I'm going to do now is actually give it a space. Now there's a beautiful utility called space Y, space the items on the y-axis of 4. And what this does is it spaces out the children inside the container. So we have image and button as children. This will give it a spacing of 4 between them, okay? Looks very, very nice. So at this point, we've got this is looking pretty nice right now. But the image is still, it's looking a bit stretched out. So we can use this object fit cover. I'm going to show you another way where you can also use Tailwind. So if I wanted to do object cover here, I can also do that. I can say object cover, and now it will go ahead and do cover. And if I want to keep the aspect ratio, I can do contain as well. But in this case, I want to do cover, right? And I want it to be rounded. So I'm going to say rounded 4. And you can see why my love for Tailwind CSS is real, right? It's so easy to style this stuff. For this button, we're going to go ahead and give it a style, right? It looks boring right now. I don't like it. I'm going to do a background of yellow, right? And also Tailwind CSS version 3 gives you a bunch of new colors, so it's pretty cool. We're going to do yellow 500. Nice. Looks pretty decent. I'm going to do rounded LG to give it kind of a rounded corner look. And we don't see it much because there's no padding. So give it a padding of 5. Looks kind of nice. Let's bold the text out, font bold. All right, again, looking really good. And then I'm going to make it super futuristic with an animation. I'm going to say animate posts. And look at that. Oh, already just in a second, guys. Look at that. Tailwind model ranger says Tailwind equals life-saving productivity. Yeah, it's actually true. It's like a productivity guru for a developer, right? To be so efficient when you're coding, right? So again, we have this looking pretty nice now, yeah? So that's looking awesome, guys. And with that bit, we've actually done the design aspect of the login screen, right? So this is looking very good right now. What we now need to do is plug in Moralis, right? So we obviously went ahead and set up Moralis earlier. So we've got Moralis over here, right? So I went ahead into my Moralis admin, and I went ahead and clicked on dashboard, right? So once you click on dashboard, you go to this screen. Now on this screen, you can see a bunch of confusing stuff, right? Well, the way it works is we've got rows, users, and this is going to be where the users live. And we've got a bunch of other things. So we can actually, this is our database, right? So if you actually look in row, we've got like a database like structure here. So what I want to do now is connect to Moralis on the React app. So the way we do this is we're going to do we're going to use a nice package called React Moralis, okay? So at this point, what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a new tab and call it React and Google React Moralis. And you can see here, we've got React Moralis. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And you get a nice little guide here. So we're going to go ahead and install this. So npm install React Moralis. This is a bit of a tongue twister. Yeah, and then we're going to go ahead and split the terminal. So with that said, we've installed React Moralis. Oh, I haven't installed it yet. Let's go ahead and copy this. And if you're using yarn, you can use the other command. So npm install React Moralis. This will install React Moralis into our project. So it's Moralis, but the React version, okay? So at this point, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and we added a bunch of packages, okay? So we have a React Moralis inside of our app. Now it doesn't just work magically, okay? We're going to click on index, and then what we need to do is actually go ahead and install it into our app, right? So I'm going to go back to here, and you can see we have this thing called Moralis provider. Now this is a very normal pattern that we see. We do the same thing when we have Firebase. We do the same thing when we're using things like Next.js, right? They're called higher order components, and what they do is they essentially wrap your app and power it up with the features. In this case, Moralis. So we're going to power it up with Moralis features, okay? So over here, what I'm going to do is import Moralis provider from React Moralis inside of our app.js file. Okay, so Command B, open up our file tree. Underscore app is basically where all the components or pages fly through. Kind of think of it like that, right? So at this point, what I want to do is I'm going to return, and instead of this, I'm going to return some parentheses, right? So I'm going to return some parentheses. I'm actually going to go ahead and pop this inside of there, right? Oops, no, what have I done? Oh god, okay, let's go ahead and copy that and pop it there. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, what we should do is have that next to it. There we go. Right, and what I want to do is I'm going to import my okay, bit of a mess, but that's fine. I'm going to import my Moralis provider, and I'm simply going to wrap my component in a Moralis provider. Okay, we're going to wrap it like so. Okay, now that's not all, right? So what this is doing, again, higher order, because it's literally wrapping the child components and then it's powering them up with this new functionality, right? So what we need to do with this Moralis provider is go ahead and actually give it an app ID and a server URL. Now, details like this should be private, right? Or essentially not. Some details like this can be public, but if you've got a key, it should be private. But in this case, you don't want to really store it in plain text. So I'm going to teach you guys how to use an environment file to go ahead and store these credentials. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a file, call it .env.local, and this will not get committed to GitHub, which means that when you deploy to your Vercel to actually get this up and running, you will need to go ahead and add these in as well, right? So at this point, we've got our environment local file, and what I need is two things. I need my app ID and my URL. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and do something like this: app equals, app ID equals, and I'm going to go ahead and put some JSX, and I'm going to go ahead and say process.environment. So I'm going to access my environment files, and I'm going to access something called next public, and I'm going to call it app ID. Okay, that's the first one, and this is going to be, we're going to create these files in a second, and the second one is going to be server URL, and this one is going to go ahead and be the following. We're going to say process.env, I love this song, we're going to bring this up, process.env dot, and this one's going to be server URL. Oh, sorry, it's process.env next public server URL. Okay, nice. Oops, there we go, nice. Okay, now you can see we haven't created these, so we're going to create them now. Now you're probably wondering, why did he write next public? Well, these are credentials which I do not mind being on the client. I don't mind if the app ID and server URL are on the client, as long as I don't pass any keys on the client. So if I don't have next public, it only gets rendered on my server renders. I'm not going to get too far into Next.js with server rendering, but if you want to know about that, check out my other builds on Next.js. But what this allows us to do is have access to these credentials on the browser. Okay, so at this point I need to create these. So I go to my environment local file, and I'm going to start creating these things. So I'm going to go ahead and create that in there. Oops, I'm going to go ahead and create this in there as well. Right, I need to give these obviously values. Okay, so in local files literally have key with the value, no quotes or anything like that. So what we're going to do now is go over to our Moralis admin, and we're going to click on view details. Now I'm going to quickly check something to make sure there's no sensitive credentials here. But what you want to do here, guys, is actually go ahead and make a connection to the database. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually blur out some of the stuff here, so that way we can actually sort of, you know, save the stream and it doesn't get too hectic with people trying to spam this thing. But I'm going to go ahead and do something right now. Okay, so at this point you should see the following on your screen, right? You should see a server URL. When you click on the details, view details, this pops up. You see a server URL. You want to copy the server URL, and you want to copy the application ID. Once you have those, you want to put them in the appropriate spots. The app ID goes here, the server URL goes here. Save the file after that. That is that step done, right? You will need to repeat this step when we do Vercel, okay? So I'm trying to make it as clear as possible for you guys, so that way you don't make a mistake here. Now I'm going to quickly do those steps as I mentioned. I'm going to copy my server URL, and I'm just doing it, and I'm telling you as I do it so you guys can do the same thing. So now I have next public server URL with that special key. I'm going to do the same thing for my application ID. The reason why I'm not doing it on the live stream is I don't want people to kind of, you know, go crazy with the keys. So now I'm going to save my environment local file and close it. Okay, so at this point I've gone ahead and done that, and I've closed it, and I'm going to share my screen in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. We are back. Okay, so at this point, how do I activate my keys? Well, I need to actually go ahead and do Control C and then do a npm run dev to pull in the latest environment variable. So if I do this again, you'll see it will go ahead and say loaded environment from environment local. That's good. That means we're all good in the right spot. Now, when you do install React Moralis, we do need to install a peer dependency. So you see this error came up. You need to copy this Wallet Connect Web3 provider, and we need to actually go ahead and install that. So I'm going to say npm I and Wallet Connect Web3 provider. We do need that when we start doing our authentication portion, right? So at this point, once that's installed, do a sanity check. Make sure that your app is still working. Make sure that it's all good. So if I refresh now, it shouldn't have broken anything, right? Things should still be loading. That's good. That's a good sign. So at this point, we're going to do the login portion. So we have access to all of the cool Moralis stuff now. So if I go back to my index, instead of having this hard-coded false value, what I actually want to do now is pop in the following. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and actually pull in this handy use Moralis function. Okay, so it's import use Moralis from React Moralis. It's a nice little hook, right? I do have tutorials about hooks on my channel. Feel free to check them out. Everything on my channel is free for a reason. I'm trying to deliver value to the world. And then if you want to pursue it to that next level, that's why we have Zero to Full Stack Hero. It's completely, feel free to join us when you're ready. Let's continue this on. So we're going to go ahead and pop in the use Moralis. Now, instead of this, I'm actually going to go ahead and say const, and they give us a very nice thing here called is authenticated. Right, so you can see what we're doing here, right? And we can say equals use Moralis. Now you get a bunch of stuff back here, right? So if I go ahead and control click this or command click this, you can see I get all of these things back, right? So I can actually pull out authenticate, login, logout, sign up, auth, all this kind of cool stuff from this one function. But in this case, I'm going to get rid of our custom one that we had here before, the hard coded, and I'm going to determine if we're authenticated from Moralis. So Moralis will now handle the authentication portion. So now if I refresh, it will say you're not authenticated. So there's no error. So it's actually correct. We're not authenticated on Moralis. So this is actually pretty good, right? Now what we want to do is have it so that when I click this button, I trigger an authentication request. Now in Web3, what this essentially means is it will connect to your wallet. So it could be MetaMask. They also support other ones, but MetaMask is the default wallet. Hence why we set one up yesterday. It will make a request to your wallet to say, hey, is this actually you? And then you have to sign it. Right, so imagine like a little check. You have to prove that you own the wallet and you prove it by having the MetaMask wallet and then going ahead and hitting the sign button. So I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. It's incredibly powerful, and Ivan over at Moralis explains it the best. One line of code. So that's exactly what I'm gonna show you right now. Feel free to follow along while I do this. So we're going to go to the login component over here, and we're going to go ahead and do this right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that handy use Moralis hook over here. So you can see it's really clean, honestly, really, really nice how they've done this. And I'm going to go ahead and use that hook at the top over here and say const authenticate. So I'm pulling the authenticate object out. And what I want to do is when I click the login button, I'm going to go ahead and say button on click. I'm going to authenticate, right? So you can either do this or you can have an arrow function which calls it. But if you're just doing a simple function, you can actually just go ahead and call it straight up like this. And what we should see now, if we have done this correctly, guys, we would actually see a request being made. Yes, it was that simple to actually implement a MetaMask login, right? It's mind-blowing, right? And this is what your boy does. I'm finding the tech that's going to help you accelerate your development and absolutely crush it as a developer without having to spend so much time on the boring parts. Let's go ahead and hit refresh. I'm going to click login to the metaverse now, and let's see if it works. If it does, guys, I want you to destroy that thumbs up button and absolutely subscribe if you haven't already and just get hyped up, right? So let's do this. I'm going to click it in 3, 2, 1, boom. I click it. Wow, what? This worked, man. First time. Moralis authentication. We have a nice unique ID that gets passed over to us, which is basically, it's called a nonce request, right? I'm not going to go too far into it, but basically it's like a unique thing that we know about, that they know about, that we can basically handshake on to prove that this is a legit kind of authentication happening right now, right? Now I click sign, and at that point, I should actually go through to the app. Sign. And at this point, okay, interesting. Oh, it worked. Nice. Welcome to the app. So you see, we actually signed in. The hook, which was determining if we're authenticated or not, refreshed, and bam, we are inside the app. Simple as that. It worked, right? So we are inside our app right now, and if I refresh, it will check if I'm authenticated, and bam, I'm inside the app. Right, now if you want to kind of handle that, you know, that loading portion, you can actually go ahead and tap into the authentication. Is authenticated, oh, I think it is authenticating sort of hook, or is initialized hook, I think it is actually. It might be this one, is initializing, right? You can actually tap into that. So I'm going to leave that for you guys to add in bonus points for your sort of, you know, if you want to go ahead and customize your builds a bit further. But that in itself literally works, right? So now if I go ahead and refresh, it's there. So I'm going to add a quick button inside the app, which allows us to do a quick logout, right? So if I do index over here, now quickly, I'm just going to do a button and just say logout just to prove something. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull the logout function from a Moralis, and I'm going to say on click logout, right? So on click, I'm going to say logout. Now what we should see is if I click this button, I'm logged out, bam. And if I refresh, look at this. Nice. That is awesome, right? If I go ahead and log in again, we get another sign request, sign it, bam, we are logged in. If I hit refresh, I'm persisted. I'm still logged in. If I click log out, bam. We have a full authentication with Web3 tech. What we're going to do now is head over to Vercel, right? So not only Vercel, I'm actually going to go ahead and open up GitHub as well. Right, so I'm going to open up GitHub. If you haven't already got the proper GitHub repo, feel free. Link is in the description if you want to get access to all our code, the builds, all that good stuff. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new repo. Okay, so at the top right, new repo. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to give it a name, right? So I'm going to say the Metaverse Challenge YouTube, right? And I'm going to say description. That's okay. I'm going to make this one private. And we're going to click create repo. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and copy this first line, right? So we've created our GitHub repo. Now we need to push the code over. So if I go over here, make it full screen, Command J to pull up my terminal. I'm going to make this one a bit bigger. I'm going to sort of, you know, increase the size so you guys can see it a bit easier. And what I want you to do now is simply go ahead and paste in that command. Okay. And here we have Git is not a repo. Oh, wow. I haven't got Git in here. What the hell? Let me do ls. Okay, so if you do get that error, which you shouldn't, do a simple git init, right? And that will actually go ahead and create a git repo inside of here. That's very strange. I don't know why we had that, but I'm going to go ahead and do git remote add origin. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to push up, right? So right now it's actually going to be in the main branch. That's fine. Right, we're going to do git branch main. So it's going to our main branch. Right, so if you didn't know, if you have master, that's the old way of doing things. Main is the new way of doing it. So what we did is we just switched over to the main branch, and you can see we have 14 things which we haven't pushed yet, right? So we've got 14 sort of upgrades that we haven't pushed yet to the repo, and that makes sense. We've got 14 things which are different from this blank canvas. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to say git add all. And if I type in git status, you'll see that what I just did is I added all of these to the next stage sort of commit, right? So if I click on this, you can see the stage changes. These are all the things I want to now push or commit to a push. In this case, I can type in git commit, and I can type in -m for the message of what this commit is. Now you should give your commit messages something which makes sense. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to say implemented, let's just say login flow with Moralis completed, right? Login flow with Moralis, enter. And what this does is, oh wow, I didn't actually enter in my git config. That's fine. You can set this up yourself. But in this case, it went ahead and did that, right? So let me go and check. Okay. Oh God, it's so annoying when it's doing this. Let's do run git config mobile. I don't want to do that right now. Unable to order the email address. Okay, let me quickly configure my MacBook. That's fine. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to quickly go ahead and enter in my email. And now what we're going to do is a second chance, right? So we're going to do a git status, and you can see we've got all this. We'll do the git commit message and hit enter, and there we go. And what that's now done is it's pushed our changes to GitHub. So if I do git log, you can now see we have one commit, which is login flow with Moralis, and it's complete, right? So what I want to do is I want to now push this up to my repo. So I want to push my code from here over to the repo. And the way I do it is I type in git push. And what you do is you'll get this nice little command over here. You can copy that, hit paste, and now we should get a lovely push to our repo and refresh the repo, and bam, it is there. Okay, so So at this point, we have committed it to our GitHub. So we've done the first part. The second part is we need to go over to our vercel.com/dashboard. Log in, it's free to do so. Click on new project. And what we're gonna now do is connect our GitHub repo, which I've already done. And we're gonna go to our recently set up file. So we're gonna click on import. Now, as you can see, it automatically detects it's Next.js. But what we do need to do is set the environment variables. So what I'm now gonna do is go over to my environment variables. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop open my environment variables. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and hide the screen now so we don't show this, right? But what I'm doing is I'm first grabbing my first environment variable. So I'm gonna go ahead and share it as I do it. So next public app ID, and I'm gonna put the value of that ID in here. Then I'll go ahead and hit the add button, okay? So I'm gonna do that right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in as we speak right now. So it's going in just a second, bam, and we've got the first one in, and you will now see that it says next public app ID, and it's in there. I'm gonna do another one, which is for the second thing. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do this one, next public server URL. And I'm gonna do the same thing for this one. So this is now doing it for the server URL. So let me quickly do one thing, hold on a second. Right, so as you can see, we've got this next public server URL, and I'm gonna pop the value in here. So we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. So I've got the server URL. Jay, we all good? Nice. All right, so I'm going to click on add. Nice, right? So this is looking good, guys. Now we have our environment variables all nicely set up, and it's all optimized. And as I mentioned, these are environment variables, which means that they're going to be sort of, you know, hidden away the credentials that you don't want to show to the rest of the world. We're going to click on deploy at this point, right? So I'm going to click on deploy, and at this point, we're now going to deploy that Next.js app that we went ahead and set up in our, and push to our GitHub. We're now deploying it, okay? So you can see custom environment variables applied, and it now builds the project. So what it's doing is it's creating an optimized production build, and it's deploying it to a Vercel URL. So what's really nice about this, guys, is it will actually go ahead and install the required dependencies, do everything, and then it will deploy it to a URL that we don't even have to pay for, right? It's actually free. So it's actually going to go ahead and work in just a second. We now have, yay, look at this. We now deployed our app. So you should get this beautiful confetti. Looks awesome. You can click on the image to go to your deployed URL. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to grab this lovely URL. That's a very nice one. And we're going to go ahead and check it out, right? So I'm going to see if this works. Metaverse Challenge YouTube app, and looks really nice, okay? Log into the Metaverse, and I'm going to go ahead and select an account, log in, connect, awesome stuff. Connect, sign. So we connected our wallet to the website, signed it, we're logged in. If I hit the refresh button, bam, we're still logged in, log out. That's exactly what I want you guys to get to, right? Amazing, smooth transition. Now what we're gonna do is go ahead and extend it with the build that you guys have seen and loved already, right? So we're gonna be using Moralis to store the off-chain data for all the chats. So it's gonna be really, really fun. So at this point, we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. We have, let me split the screen up. Let's open up my Chrome. I'm going to open up a new tab over here, and we're going to do a local host. Let's jump this in. Localhost 3000. Nice. So at this point, I'm going to log into the Metaverse so that way we can bypass the login screen. So there you go. We're in. And now I'm going to go ahead and start building this out. Right? So at this point, the first thing I like to do whenever we're building apps, if you've seen any of my videos, is we like to sort of draft out what we need, right? So we're going to have two main fundamental components here. We've got a header at the top, which is this part, and then we have the messages, right? So I'm just going to do a little drawing here and explain this very quickly. So I'm going to open up my screen brush right now. And as you guys can see, we've got this header section at the top, and then we have the messages down below, okay? So this is going to be componentized. This one's going to be the header messages. So let's go ahead and chuck this in right now. So I'm going to go ahead and mask this out. So we're going to have some form of header component and some form of messages component. It's always going to be easier when you mask it out like this. And again, feel free to extend this app and hype it up as much as you want. Go ahead and smash the thumbs up button if you're enjoying this. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because there's like over 50% of you that haven't subscribed. I don't know why. It's crazy. All right, but let's go ahead and start off with the header. The header is the most aesthetic part. It's going to be the most easy to go ahead and see and build. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get a div wrapped around all of this, right? So I'm going to get rid of welcome to the app. We'll leave the logout button for now so we can test a few things. So I'm going to go ahead and say div, And inside of this, we're going to have this header and these messages. Okay. Now what we're also going to do is have another div inside. Now you're probably wondering, why the heck is he doing two divs? The reason being, guys, is because what we're actually doing with the design here is we actually had it so that, let me pull it over here. We actually had it so that we had a max width constraint. So if you can see here, we actually have a max width being applied. Right, so we have one div for the entire screen, and then we have this max width container which we can constrain. So in order to do that very easily, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the inner div and I'm going to give it a class name of max width. And this is the lovely thing about, you know, Tailwind CSS, is you can do all this. Say max width screen, I'm going to say 2XL. So that means on a very big screen, it will limit the width of the screen, because I don't want it to be massive. I don't want it to be, you know, at the point where it just gets a bit like hard to read anything and you can't really see what the hell's going on. I want it to be very easy to go ahead and have a nice user experience. Now, when I do that, it's not going to be centered, right? If you limit the width, it will start from here on the left-hand side and it will probably end around here. We need to center it like you see on the screen right here. So in order to do that, you go ahead and change it to MX auto. So this means it makes the margins automatic, right? And this will go ahead and give you automatic margins from the left and right. So at this point, we're going to create a header. So I'm going to go ahead and make our life a bit easier at this point. We'll go ahead and make the screen a bit bigger, pop this over here. I'm going to do Command B, and in the components, I'm going to go ahead and say header.js. Right now, underscore RFCE creates my functional component. Now inside my header, I just want to do a H1 and say I am a header. Now I hate when it does that because it sometimes, you know, tries to auto complete for us. I am a header. Okay, hit save. Nice. All right, so now what we're going to do is do a header like so, and I'm going to go ahead and make this. There you go, looks clean. And now it says I am a header. So we're going to turn that into the lovely header that you see over here. Right, we're going to go ahead, and I do want to see you guys actually, you know, customize this. I'm really excited to actually see what you guys come up with. So that'll be super interesting. Right, now we've got the header inside of here, so we might as well just focus on that first. We'll get that working, kind of get it built out. Before we actually do that, I'm going to go ahead and get this outer div somewhat styled. Okay, so here I'm going to say that we should have the outer div always be the height of the screen, and I want it to be a scrollable container. So we have to set the height of the screen, and then what we actually have to do is set an overflow on the y-axis to scroll. Right, so this means that when we have messages which go past the end of the screen, the entire screen won't move, but the messages part will. Right, in order to achieve this, we say overflow y scroll. And this will allow us to have that nice scrollable functionality, right? Now on the background, I want to have like a pink background. Now, as I mentioned, we are using Tailwind CSS version 3. So make sure you're on version 3 because the colors I'm going to be using today are only supported in version 3. So I'm going to go ahead and change the height of the screen over here. Oh, we've got the, we don't actually need this surrounding div anymore. I'm going to get rid of this. And in fact, well, actually we can go ahead and pop it over here. That's fine. We don't actually need this div. We can do it with the outside surrounding div. So we have the height screen, overflow Y. There we go. Looks pretty clean. And then I'm going to go ahead and say background should be a gradient. And you can see to the top right, to the right. You can change the direction. We're going to do a gradient to the bottom. And it's going to go from the color black, and it's going to change to a gradient of fuchsia. So this is like a new nice pink, and to me I think it looks quite, you know, neon, sort of Tron like, right? So I really like this gradient. So now you can see we get a nice gradient, right? That actually looks really clean. And at this point, what I want to do is, if there's any additional overflow, I want to hide it, right? So that way, you know, we make sure that we don't get any leakage, right? So at this point, this is where we want to be. And we have got the text up there in black. Make sure that you understand that it is black, yeah? So it's not going to be, you know, it's not actually hidden. It may look hidden, but it's there, right? I promise you it's there. So at this point, we're going to go into the header. And then we're going to go ahead and I like this music, it's that proper vibe. And then we're going to go ahead and pull in firstly, we're going to pull in the user, right? So I'm going to go ahead and use our handy Moralis. So in that case, to get that trick, by the way, you click at the end of S, control spacebar, and then it pops up with the autocomplete. So I'm going to import that from React Moralis, and this gives us a bunch of things. We're going to pull the user out here, right? Now, because we're authenticated, I can be sure that the user exists, right? Because we have this protection block over here, which says is authenticated. So we know that the user will be there, so we can safely use information about the user at this point, right? Now, what I want to do is firstly, I'm going to have my div, and I want to separate a few things, right? So I want to actually have like a somewhat of a separation here. So I'm going to have like this is going to be stuck to the top. So as I scroll down, it'll be stuck. It's not not going to scroll down with the screen, but we're going to go ahead and, you know, make it quite nice. So first thing I want to do is start getting some of these images in, right? I want to get this image in. I want to go ahead and have it like, you know, the avatar. So we're going to have this kind of nice avatar going on. And I'm also going to have the user's name, okay? And then we need to create this change username component as well. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to have a div, and I'm going to prep myself up. So I'm going to have an inner div, and inside this inner div, the first one is going to be an image, and this is going to be for this left side, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a div here. I'm going to have an image inside of it, and we're going to be using the Next.js image tag, which is a self-closed image tag, okay? So it says import image from next image. All right, so at this point we've got the image. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and change the layout to fill. So we're going to go ahead and say layout fill. We're going to do layout fill. Now, if I do that, you can see that we get a full size picture. Now, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty cool, but that does definitely not what I wanted, right? I mean, it's nice to have, but we're not going to have that as our final thing, right? So I'm going to go ahead and optimize this. The first thing I want to do is make it rounded, full. And this will go ahead and make it a circle, okay? Then I'm going to do object cover, and you can either do it there or you can do object. You know, there's a nice way over here, object fit cover. You can also do it there, so we'll actually do it there. And let's go ahead and hit save. Now that's going ahead and, you know, fix the aspect ratio, but it's massive, right? So the way we fix this is we need to make the surrounding parent relative. Right, so if I do relative, now it's going to be relative to its parent, and the parent has no height or width. This is why it's not being shown. So if I do a height of 24 and a width of 24 here, hit save, now it's relative to its parent container, but it's maximizing its space. Okay, now here I want to go ahead and give it an MX auto margin. So it should center itself. That's nice. It's going to be in the center of its container. Now, what I actually want to do is on a smaller screen, I want to hide this component. So I'm going to say by default, it's hidden. And only when I hit a large screen, I want it to be an inline grid component, because we're going to be using grid in the surrounding elements. So as you can see now, the way it works with breakpoints, guys, is it starts off with a mobile first approach. This means that all the styles that I write are all applied to the mobile first. And if you want to change it, you can add in sizes for the above screen sizes. So you'll see all the styles without a breakpoint, so like LG, SM, they're all getting applied to mobile upward, right? So mobile first design. Then we can go ahead and say when you hit a large screen, also apply that. So what we actually did here was we said it's hidden by default on mobile, and when we hit a large screen, it becomes an inline grid. So as we go to a bigger screen, bam, it comes into play, right? So that's how we do it. So I'm going to go ahead and actually sort of zoom out so we can actually do this one kind of cool. So I'm going to zoom out myself here. So I'm forced to zoom out. I'm actually zoomed out a little bit here. So if I go ahead and do, let's go ahead and do maybe a half and half. There we go. Right, and if I get confused later on, remind me that I zoomed out. Right, so there we go. So we've got this right now, we've got the image, we've got the inline grid. So the outside surrounding component, I'm going to go ahead and say that this one is going to have a couple more things. This is actually going to be a grid component, right? So next to this div is where I'm going to have our first avatar, right? So this avatar right here, I want to go ahead and have all this information contained. So this one is going to have all that stuff. So we've got a div, and I'm going to go ahead and say that inside of here, we're actually going to have the avatar. And then we're going to go ahead and have the welcome message. And we're going to go ahead and have, oops, if I can spell. And then we're going to have the username. Right. And then underneath all of that, we'll also have the change username component. Okay, and that's going to allow us to change a component. So all of this stuff we have to build. So let's go ahead and tackle one thing at a time. Let's do the avatar first, right? Well, I'm going to go ahead and contain my avatar, and the avatar is actually going to be a component of its own because I want to reuse it a couple of things, right? So Command B, I'm going to go ahead and create an avatar component, avatar.js. Right, awesome stuff, looks good. And let's do underscore RFCE for our functional component. Now for this avatar, I'm actually going to go ahead and do a few cool things, right? I'm going to pass in a few props, right? And the props here are going to be either a username or it's going to be a logout on press. Right, because basically what I want to do is I want to reuse this avatar, you know, in places like here. But you can see here, it's not clickable. But here, if I go here, it's actually a clickable element. And obviously it's a screenshot, that's why I can't show you. But if I hover over this one and click it, I want to log out. And if I hover over this one, I don't want to do anything, right? I want to show the username underneath. So that's why we need to do what we're doing now, right? So I'm going to pass in two of these things over here. Now for this avatar, let me go ahead and render it on the screen. So let's go ahead and say avatar, and this one in the main screen, I'm going to say logout on press. Okay, and this is just going to be a boolean, so hence I don't have to push anything in. It's just going to be a case of if it's true, then you can do that. Right now I'm going to need our Moralis, so I'm going to go ahead and pop in that hook. and I'm going to go ahead and import it. So control spacebar, use Moralis. Now we've got the user and we've got a logout function, right? So at this point, I've got instead of having a div here, I'm just going to render out an image tag. And this is going to be a Next.js image. So self-closing component image tag. Now, what I also want to do here is have a few things, right? So I'm going to say the source should be some kind of cool avatar that creates itself based on the username, okay? So what I'm kind of thinking here is we can use an API such as DiceBears. So if I go over to dicebears.com right now, I'll show you guys how cool this is, right? So heading over to dicebears.com, so it's avatars.dicebear.com. You get this pretty cool API, right? And what this does is, based on the word that you provide, it gives you a different avatar. So if I type in Sunny Sango, you see it gives me like and you've got different sort of, you know, ideas. You've got personas, pixel art, you've got pixel art neutral, all these kind of cool things, and it all gets randomly generated based on the words that you give in as a seed. Okay, so what we're doing, oh nice, YFF says, okay cool, this is actually interesting what Sunny is teaching, to be honest. Thank you so much, dude. So at this point, this is going to be something which could be pretty handy for what we need right now. So the way I'm going to implement this is I'm going to do a little bit of string interpolation. So our JSX brackets, backticks, not normal ticks, backticks, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in the link. Now I've got a special URL that I found, so which is going to be the URL for the DiceBears, but it's going to be /API/pixel art. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to append some text to the end of the URL. So what we're going to do here, this is where the seed will go. This is where I type in that random text to generate our image. So at this point, I'm going to say, if I pass in a username prop, use that. Okay, so username or get the user, right? So it will first try, if I pass in the username, show that username. The reason why I might need that is because, think about it, I'm going to be using this component for the messages. Now it may not be the user who is logged in. I want to sometimes show a message or an avatar for a message that someone else has sent me. So this is why we need to check first if the username has been provided. Otherwise we will use the user who is logged in. So I'm going to say user.get username. And this is a handy function that they give you. User.getUsername allows us to go ahead and get the username from the user object. Okay, that's why I get this get function, in case you're wondering. So that is actually a special Moralis user that we get back. And if I click into it, you can see that's a function that comes back from Moralis. Okay, and let's go ahead and test this out. Okay, so you can see we didn't give it a height and a width. Okay, so at this point, what I now need to do is go ahead and I'm actually going to give this one a layout of fill, right? Because I want it to be determined by its parent component, right? So if I do layout fill, I'm going to go ahead and say on click, right? If you click this, I only want to make a arrow function be triggered off if the logout on press prop is passed through. So if I pass this in, logout on press, only then do I want to log out. Okay, so what we're actually saying here is only if you pass this. This is basically a way of checking a Boolean. So if this is true, then log out. Okay, so we've got this looking pretty good. Now that wasn't all, by the way, guys. After we've got the username, user.get username, after that closing bracket, you have to say .svg. Okay, it's an SVG file, and now you should be able to see what we see here. At this point, that is basically our username. Oops, there we go. Let me log in. I actually clicked it and I did the logout. So the logout works. So that's nice. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have some effects on this DiceBear. So we're going to go ahead and make that look pretty cool. So for the class name, let's go ahead and style it up a bit. So class name, we're going to say, firstly, it should be rounded full. Right, I want to give the background a nice black color. So background black, looking pretty nice. I want to say cursor should be a pointer. So when I hover over it, I know it's something clickable. So in this case, you can see now I hover and the cursor changes to a pointer. Looks pretty nice, right? So basically, if I don't do backticks, right, you can't add in JSX. So you can't merge a string with some JavaScript if you don't do backticks. Or you have to do it the old school way, which looks something like this, right? You would have your string, right? Oops, string plus like a variable name, so like user or something like that. But you don't want to do that, right? That's the old way of doing it. This is like the newer way where you string interpolate. That's what it's called, right? That's basically why you connect, like you combine your string with a variable. That's hence why we have this syntax, right? So looking pretty good. I actually want to kind of customize it though. I want to have it so when I hover over that, it's going to go ahead and change the opacity. So we have these nice hover utility classes where you can go and say hover, change the opacity. to 75, right? And you can do whatever you want with these hover and active clicks and all that. So now if I hover over it, nice. So that looks a lot more clickable. It looks like something's actually going to happen when I click this, right? So that's exactly what I wanted, right? So at this point, avatar is looking good. I'm going to go ahead and change it now and go back to my header. And instead now, remember it's layout fill, which means it's going to go ahead and maximize its potential around it. So I'm going to go ahead and change this class name to have some height and width. So we're going to say height of 48. And you can see it should go ahead and snap itself into a decent size in a second. Height of 48 and a width of 48 too. Now the reason why this isn't taking effect is because we need to make it relative. That means that the children inside of it will be relative to that container. That's why it kicks in after you do relative. So that's how we get that nice effect going on, right? Now when I'm on a large screen, I want to go ahead and change a few things. So large, and we're going to go ahead and say MX auto. So on the large screen, I want to center it. So you can see there, right? On the large screen, it's now centered. And then we want to go ahead and say, I want to give a border pink 500, border pink 500. That's an awesome message right now. We're going to do border pink 500. And then I'm going to go ahead and say a border should have a thickness of 8. Right, and now we get this, but that's not nice because that's square and the actual picture is kind of, it's round. So we need to go ahead and say rounded 4, and that will go ahead and merge the two worlds. Perfect, right? Looking pretty nice now. Now remember, it only applies a margin auto on the large screen, so that's why it sticks to the left. Otherwise, look at that. Again, this nice aspect. And when you combine all these breakpoints in different areas, you get this nice responsive app feel, right? It's very nice when it comes together. Now, the overall app so far is actually forming up pretty quick. So we've done the avatar. We're going to now do the welcome message, right? So the welcome message is going to be at H1 because it's quite a high priority message. We're going to say welcome to the Papa Fam metaverse, right? Papa Fam metaverse. And you guys can feel free, customize this up, change it up. Now it's very hard to see that text right now. So instead I'm going to do text is 3XL. Right, 3XL. My God, we just got low. Oh, sorry, what am I doing? Class name, text 3XL. Welcome to the Papa Fam Metaverse. Nice, that looks pretty good. We're also going to change the text at some point here to be a nicer color as well, right? We're going to make it a nice pink in a second as well. So in fact, I'm going to apply that to all of the text. So I'll show you how to do it afterwards. But let's do it right now, right? So the first thing you want to do is go to the div at the top, put class name, and I'm going to say text should be pink 500. All right, there we go. And now you can see it a lot more easier. Okay, so we've got the H1 looking pretty good. We're also going to add an H2, and this H2 is going to be a little bit different. It's going to have the username. So obviously, as we're already at this point, we'll have access to the user. We pull the user in with the Moralis hook, and then we're going to go ahead and add in our JSX over here. We'll say user.get username. Okay, user.get username. Now I just want to check, actually they actually sometimes have a nice little extension here, set username, get username. Okay, you could do that as well, right? You can go ahead and do get username, and that's a nice little function from Moralis. And now you can see, boom, that's actually my generated username inside of Moralis, right? So I want to show you where the hell that is actually getting generated right now. So if I go over to Moralis, right, so I'm going to go into login to Moralis right now and have this up and running. I think it will help you guys out by seeing the backend as well. Let's click on a drop down and let's click on dashboard. Okay, now inside of your dashboard, this is basically going to be like your Firebase console, very like similar experience, right? Now at this point, if I go to user, you can see when I logged in, it created a user, right? Now we have two accounts that I've logged in with. The one that I'm probably going to be interested in is the one with my Ethereum address, which is the 815. This is it. This is me, right? So at this point, this is my account that I'm logged in with. And as you can see, I do get a object ID, or where is it? My user ID. Yeah, here, my user ID, right? So this is actually my username out of the box, right? So they give me a predefined username that we can then go ahead and customize to allow us to have a nicer user interface, right? All right, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and I want to change that eventually. So we're going to create a change username component to do that in just a sec, right? That's pretty good, but I want to style the H2 class name, right? So we do class name and let's pop it over here. And we already have a responsiveness kind of kicking in. We're going to say text should be 5XL. I want the font to be bold and I want to truncate it if it's too long. All right, so you can see the truncate gives us the ... And that's very nice, guys, because it works on the bigger screen, but on the smaller screen, I don't want it to go crazy. And you might have people who try and break it and go a bit mad and put like 100 billion characters in. I don't want it to break the thing, right? All right, so we got the welcome message, the username done. That's looking pretty sick. And let's go ahead and now do the change username component, okay? So the change username component is gonna be literally a component. So I'm gonna have change username. Let's go ahead and copy that. Command B, go ahead and make a new component, change username, underscore RFCE, there we go. And then we're gonna go ahead and hit save. I need to import change username, nice stuff. And we're going to go ahead and start creating out this change username component. Right now, it's not returning anything, hence why it's kind of freaking out, right? So this is not going to be a div. This is actually going to be a form, right? And the reason being is because I want it to kind of pop out and do some cool stuff with it, right? So at this point, I'm going to have a form. I'm going to have a button. It doesn't have to be a form, right? I've just left it open to interpretation. So you can go ahead and actually make it an interactive form if you want. Mine's actually going to be a quick pop-up for simplicity, right? So we've got change your username. Now, when I click it, you see there's like a big refresh happening, right? So we don't actually need it to be a form. In fact, you know what? Forget it. We'll make it a div, right? You don't actually need it to be a form. Originally, I had it as a form because I had a different user interface, but I changed it afterwards, so we'll go ahead with that. Here's our change username. Looks pretty nice. Now I actually want to stick that to the top right. I don't want it to be there, so I'm actually going to go ahead and say text should be small. Right, text should be small, and we're going to make it absolutely positioned. Now, if I do that, it's going to mean that we have absolute positioning across the entire screen. So now I can go ahead and say top 5, right 5. I want you to be careful when you're using absolute positioning, right? I don't want you to go ahead and use this stuff like willy-nilly. You shouldn't be throwing it around the place. Try and use relative positioning and that sort of stuff, or flexbox or grid, but only when needed. For example, I want that to always be in the top right. I'm happy to have it there. We're going to click on change it. So now we've got that nice user interaction. So I changed hover text pink and I get this nice hovering, right? So at this point, what we're going to now do is hard to see the screen, so I have to kind of, I have to just muscle memory this. That's why sometimes it goes off. Right, let's have a look. Oh, nice. Al Kundan says, just curious, will Papa React ever come into the API development world? It could be awesome. Yes, dude. I'm down for anything. It just depends on our time, right? But otherwise, yeah, man. I don't see why not. So we've got this looking pretty nice. Now I want to go ahead and change the I'm actually going to do something pretty nice. I'm going to pull in Moralis, but I'm actually going to pull in a few additional things which we haven't seen before. So I'm going to go ahead and pass in set user data, which is a handy function for setting the user's information. Is user updating is a very handy one we're going to use to block the person spamming the button. User error, which provides an error if anything went wrong while we're updating the user, and the user object. So as I mentioned before, Moralis is king because they give you so much at disposable, like sort of methods, functions. If you want to see more, you literally command click on any of these and you should be able to see a list of the things that can get returned. So you can see all of this. If I need the, the generic Moralis object, I can get it here. I can pull out any of these things, right? Which is absolutely insane, right? That's really, really nice. So at this point, we've got this being pulled in. So I want to have it so that it says, I'm going to disable this button. So disable the button when the user is updating. So if the user is updating, I want to disable it. And I'm going to say on click of this button, I want to trigger a function. So on click is going to be set the username, right? So set username. And we don't have this function yet. So I'm going to go ahead and create it right now. So at the top of the screen, I'm going to say const set username equals an arrow function. And as you can see, this is a button, right? When I click a button, in this case, nothing happens, right? But if it was a form and I had to submit, you'd get an event and you'd have to do e.prevent default. Just the thing that I thought I'd mention. That way you don't kind of, get lost in that sort of part of it. So set username is our function. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and actually have a very quick kind of pop-up that comes up on the screen. I'm going to say const username equals, and I'm going to prompt the user. Right now I want you guys customize your modal that pops up. If you can make it look beautiful, I've left this open to go ahead and leave you guys to go ahead and expand on this. Okay, so I'm going to say prompt, and that means ask a question, and I'm going to literally say enter your new username. Right now, what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to do an example of that string interpolation. So backticks, and now I'm going to have some JavaScript in here. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to have this, and I'm going to say your current username is actually going to be this. That way you can actually tell the user what their current username is, and then and then sort of because it might be handy to say enter your new username and your current username is this. right? So that's kind of a nicer user experience, right? And we also need to protect our app against somebody trying to break it and put an empty username in. So if there is a no username, we're actually going to halt the operation of this function. So we're going to say if there's no username, cut it, return at this point, right? Otherwise, I want to set the user data. This is a Moralis function, which will go into our Moralis database, and it will go ahead and update the user that we're actually logged in as. It will update the username field, right? So the really handy thing we can do here is we can say set the user data, and we pass in an object. As part of this object, you can pass in a few functions. So if I do control spacebar, you can see we get a bunch of these, things that pop up. Now, what I'm actually going to do is change the username here. So username, right? And in ES6, if your key and value are the same sort of word, you can go ahead and get rid of it, so it's shorthanded. So now that will actually set the username when we do it. Okay, so at this point, think about what we're doing. We're using set user data, which will update the username when I click this. So if I click this now, we get a nice pop-up, enter your new username, the current one is this, and then we're pulling it and showing it on the screen over there. So if I go ahead and do Papa React and I hit OK, boom, I now have a new username and I have a new avatar, because that was the seed for the avatar that got designed on the screen and shown on the screen. So now I'm going to do Command F to refresh, and you guys should see I'm still Papa React. Okay, so really intuitive, nice system. If I do Papa React 1, 2, 3, enter, nice, I have a different avatar. In fact, I really like my old avatar. So Papa React, there you go, nice, cool. I'm like a hipstery kind of Silicon Valley guy, that dude, what's his name? If anyone knows the show Silicon Valley, what's that guy's name? Guilfoyle, that's it, I'm Guilfoyle there, right? Pretty cool. All right, so at this point, this is looking pretty nice, right? So we're gonna now move over back to the header. We have the change username component stuff. We're actually doing a very, very good pace. So for the div containing all this information, I wanna go ahead and, as I mentioned before, on a mobile screen, I wanna do text left. The reason being is I want it to be kind of very easy to read on a phone. Right, so in this case, the text should be on the left. Now, when it goes into a higher sort of screen, so the large screen, I want to text center, right? So if I do text center there, on the bigger screen, we get a nice centering of the element, right? So that looks a lot nicer at this point. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now we can now go ahead and do so there's two things that we can do here, right? So we can use the grid. In fact, I originally had used the grid, so I'm going to show you what I initially did. But initially I wanted to split this up into 3 sections, but then I realized change your username is nicer at the top, right? It was easy to do it that way. But I'm actually going to go back to my 100% because I was zoomed out before. But what I want to do now is I want to have it so that this just drops down, and I'll show you how I did it before with the grid, and you guys can feel free to use Flexbox or anything else that you want to use, right? But if you do want to align this, there's many ways you can do it. You can do Flexbox, but the problem with that is you'll kind of be pulling things into like maybe justify between or any of that. I just want to kind of center it over there, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say that this entire container is a grid. It's going to be a 5-column grid, so grid columns 5. And I'm going to go ahead and say on the large screen, it should become a grid column 6, right? Grid columns 6. Nice. I'm going to say the items should have an end, in which case they get centered over on the end side. And then we're going to go ahead and say the items should be center as well on the large screen. So large screen, the items should be on the center, right? Now give it a second. We need to go ahead and actually give these things each of their columns span, right? So in this case, what I want to do is the div over in the middle should span majority, right? So this one is going to be the main one. So this is going to say column span 4. Right, let's go ahead and save, and now you can see it centers it and it's going to be spanned in the middle, right? There's many ways you can do that. The reason why I wanted to show you that, guys, is because I wanted to kind of, we always kind of show Flexbox on the channel, but you guys can feel free to kind of mess around with it as you want, because in this case we have the main middle sort of div is taking up 4 columns. The overall grid is 5 columns, so we have a 4-to-1 split here, right? So it's a 4-to-1 split. This is 4, this is 1, and then we've centered the items, but you can feel free to change it up however you want. We're going to go ahead and drop in a nice little shadow, right? So we want to get this black background, make it look pretty nice, right? In this case, I'm gonna make the top sticky, because when I scroll down, I want the header to kind of be stuck at the top. I'm gonna say sticky top 0. That means it'll stick to the top. I'm gonna give it a padding of 5. Right now it's too close to the sides. That looks nice. I'm gonna go ahead and also do Z50, right? So that means it's gonna be at the top layer. So when we scroll down past the messages, it's gonna be stuck to the top. We want it to be at the top still. We don't want it to be like kind of behind all the other text. That's pretty cool. Now I'm going to say the background should be a black, and immediately we get this kind of nice effect happening, right? And then I'm also going to say that we should have a shadow which is small, very subtle, right? I'm not joking, that is so subtle, but it's a very little nice design that we add in, right? So background shadow SM, and I'm also going to go ahead and say the border at the bottom should be a value of 2, and I want to make it a pink border. So border pink, I'm going to say 700. Oh, pink 700, right? Awesome stuff. Now that looks clean, right? Smash the thumbs up button if that's pretty cool. We have the nice, you know, it's centering itself. We have all this goodness happening. That is very nice. So if we refresh, you can see we're still on this page. We have full persistence, looking great, and that will actually log us out as well. So I'm going to click on login again, get back into my account, and we're going to go ahead and implement the messages now. So awesome stuff if you're following me along right now. Really doing a great job, guys. We're going to go ahead and carry on with the messages portion. I can get rid of this logout button as well now. So going back to index.js, I can get rid of this kind of button over here, which means we can simplify our code over there as well. Right. Next thing we're going to do is create the messages component. Now, if you haven't used React before and you're enjoying the component-based design, let me know. I'm always interested to see what, you know, newcomers of React sort of like in this space, right? So we're going to go ahead and hit save, and you can see no messages has been created. So we're going to go to components, messages.js. This is where we're going to start pushing data into the message portal. I'm actually going to be manipulating Moralis to push data in. So underscore RFCE. All right, so we're going to open up our messages here. H1, say I am the messages. Hit save, command B to hide, and we need to go ahead and pull this in. So I'll close avatar, open up index, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this in here. Nice, and we should see it now. I am the messages, right? So we're going to go ahead and turn this into this. And bear in mind, we will have the sender messages over here and receiver messages over here as well. Right, we're going to go into messages now and start building out the next portion of this build, right? Next.js, pun intended, right? So at this point, what we're going to do is start things off by having our div, right? Now this div is too close to the side, right? So we're going to go ahead and give it a padding. We can pad it out afterwards. For now, I'll do a padding on the bottom of 56, because when I basically scroll down, I want to have extra space. So when we actually scroll down, I always want to have extra. I'll show you that in practice afterwards, right? First, we're going to start things off with Powered by Moralis. They deserve a shout out. They're incredible for what they're doing right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that in. So I'm going to pop a div. I'm going to use a special component they actually give us. I'm going to import a bunch of stuff that we're going to need from Moralis. So I've got buy Moralis, use Moralis hook, and use Moralis query. So these are going to be some handy React Moralis functions that we're going to pull in. The interesting one here is a component which is saying buy Moralis. So this is to go ahead and help them out in terms of growth. Ivan, if you're watching, dude, incredible stuff, man. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this in. I'm going to say style equals, and here we're going to say margin left. So I'm going to do some inline styling here to show you a mix of the two worlds. So inline styling, margin left. And we're going to go ahead and say auto here, and I'm going to say margin right auto as well, right? Margin right is going to be auto as well, and that will basically center it. That's like saying MX auto. I'm going to do the same thing, margin left or margin right auto. Hit save, and Powered by Moralis pops up. Now that's different to what I have, right? This is actually because we haven't given a special prop called variant. Right, so variant pops in, command space bar, and we should see dark, light, and color. So if I do dark, we have a nice dark color. So for this div as well, I'm going to give it a margin on the y-axis to push it away from the top. So margin top, actually we'll give it a margin both top and bottom. So y of 5. I love this song. This is so sick. Right, let's carry on. So we got the messages here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to have a div underneath where we render out each message that has been sent to us, right? So at this point, I'm going to say there's a div, right? And this will basically render out all the messages, right? So this will render out the message, or messages, let's call it, each message. Let's just say each message. And then we're also going to go ahead and have a send message button over here. So this will be in a div, and this one is going to be a send message function. Right, we're going to build this one first in a second, so I'll go ahead and comment out for now. And then underneath all of that, we're going to have a sort of message which tells you you're up to date, right? So when you scroll to the bottom, it should go ahead and say that you're up to date with the thing, right? So div with a P inside, it's called emit, this little trick, you can do that. And we're going to go ahead and say you're up to date, and we're going to get the user name, right? I'm going to go ahead and pop this in, right? So we're going to have P, you're up to date, with the user. Now we don't actually have our hook in play at the moment, so what I'm going to do is import that as such. We have const user equals use Moralis. Nice. It goes, you're up to date, Papa React. Awesome stuff. Looks good. And then what we're actually going to do here is style up that class name because it's a simple one. We can go ahead and do it. We can say text should be centered. Text should be a gray of 400. And we're going to say margin top of 5. That looks nice. Oh, great. There we go. And now you can see you're up to date, Papa React, and then all the messages will be in between it. Now the send message is the interesting one that we have to build first. That allows us to actually send a message and go ahead and do the interesting things about showing them. All right. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and get rid of this little comment. And what we'll do instead is we'll literally pop in a send message component. And we need to create this send message component. So Command B, hit save. I'm going to go ahead and do a send message.js underscore RFCE to create a React functional component. And then here will be where we send a message. All right, so send message, and let's go ahead and import it back over here. Control spacebar, import at the top. Bam, send message, right? So we're going to make that into this lovely enter a message Papa React box. Right, and it's going to be stuck to the bottom of the screen. So first thing I want to do is I want to get that outer container, and I'm going to say class name should be flex. We should justify it in the center, right? That's going to be the first thing. That way it's automatically centering before we even begin. Click send message. Now we're inside of our send message, and we're going to go ahead and style this one out. So for this one, I'm going to make it a form because we want to have that enter functionality where you type a message in, hit enter, and it looks pretty good. We're gonna have an input field, and then we're gonna have a button as well, right? So we've got a button down here. This button is gonna say send, right? So you can see we've already got like a nice little sort of structure coming in, but we're gonna turn that into this. So a bit of front end magic at this point, right? So first thing I want to do is style out the button. The button I'm gonna say is a class name. It's gonna have a font bold, and we're gonna make the text a pink color of 500. Looks pretty nice already, kind of look, you know, completely changes the fill up. The input field, we're going to say class name becomes a I'm going to say the outline should be none, and that basically represents the blue. So you see there's a blue little border around it, right? That gets rid of it. So outline none gets rid of that. So now if you see here, we have no outline. Looks really nice, right? Then we're going to say that the background should be transparent. So it's going to be see-through, but you can't see anything, which is a bit tricky, okay? So we need to go ahead and fix that. But first, we're going to make the text white. We're going to go ahead and make the border a 4, not that. And we're going to say border blue of 400. Right, feel free to use all the new colors in Tailwind as well. Z50, I want it to have the top level high priority. It should always be over the messages, not under. Right, and we're going to make it rounded full as well. Right, so Z50 rounded full. Hit save, and that looks pretty slick, right? And I'm also gonna have, I don't know why my Siri kicked off. There we go. Then we're gonna go ahead and say a width of 1112, right? 1112. So that'd be basically like it's gonna try and use up the most width that we have. No, sorry, that's not here. That's going to be afterwards. What am I thinking? All right. So I've actually mixed up a few things. I don't want this to be rounded. That's my bad. Right. And that's not even Z50. This is the outside bit. I'm getting way too confused. Right. Even the border. No, the border's not here. My bad. Right. The text should be white inside, but that's enough. When I say the placeholder, there we go. I was getting well confused. Placeholder should be gray with 500. And let's actually pop in a placeholder. Let's go ahead and say the placeholder should be, I'm going to say enter a message with the username. I'm going to pop that in here. So placeholder should be enter a message with the user. I need to import my Moralis hook. So let's go ahead and pop that in like so. Go to the end of the word, control space bar, import it. Nice. Enter a message Papa React. But it doesn't look that nice, right? So in the form, I'm going to make it a flex box, right? And then for the input, I'm going to say it should actually flex grow, which means take up as much room as you want for that bit. So I'm going to say flex grow. Right, hit save, and then for the actual width here, I'm going to say width should be 11/12. Right, now you can see it starts to use up the maximum space. Right, so it looks really clean already. Now over here, it's going to basically go ahead. If I type in a bunch of stuff, it's going to be so close to that edge, right? So we need to give it a padding of right on the of 5, right? And that means it won't touch the end anymore. That's going to look pretty clean. It gets rid of that issue that we have. We're going to do the functionality of this in just a sec, but let's continue styling out the box. We're going to say it's going to be fixed to the bottom of the screen, right? So this is actually different to being sticky. It's just gonna be fixed to the bottom. The background should be a black, but it's not gonna be a pitch black, right? So you can see it's black, but I'm actually gonna change the opacity to 80, right? So it's gonna be somewhat see-through now, okay? Now, we wanna make this actually have a padding on the x-axis So padding on the x-axis of 6 and a padding on the y-axis of 4. Right now you can see it automatically is starting to look really good. Now when it goes to a massive screen, I don't want it to be huge. Like, look at that. If I go to a huge screen, it's just ridiculously big. I want it to always have a max width constraint. So we need to go ahead and enforce that now. So the way I do that is I go ahead and say max width of 2XL. Right, that's the one I'm happy with. And now you can see it will never get bigger than that 2XL. Looks pretty nice, right? You got max 2XL. And I'm going to say the opacity we've already done. Let's give it a shadow. Right? I want it to have a floating effect. Shadow should be extra large. Now you can see it's got a nice little shadow under there. All these things kind of bring it together, give it that nice little finishing touch. Right? Now we want this to be rounded full. Right? This one should be rounded full, rounded full. There we go. Boom. What's up, crew 10? See you, man. So this is looking pretty nice. The only thing we're missing now is that border, right? So we're gonna say border should be a width of 4, and I'm gonna make it a blue border. So border blue, 400. Right, oops, 400. Nice. That's looking clean. Right, looking really nice at this point, right? So now we need the functionality part. So when I type in here, I need to basically keep track of that value. Now there's two ways. I teach you both ways in all my videos, right? I always show you, like, you know, the reference you can use to basically point towards that input field and then do something with the information, or you can track the value of it, and when the user types in, you can attach the value to an on-change listener. I'm going to do that way, right? So we're going to keep a piece of state inside of React, which is essentially a way of keeping track of a variable in the reactive way. So we're going to say const, and we have these square brackets, and we have the first thing, which is the variable, second thing, which is the setter function, which allows me to change it, right? And we're going to say user state. We're going to give an initial value of blank, as we don't want the user to already have some text inside there. Control space bar, import it from React. Okay, so we have our message over here. Now the way I basically attach it here is I go ahead and say value equals message. Now if I do that, you can see if I type in, I'm hitting the keyboard now, nothing's happening, because we need to have an on change where the user types in. Every time they type in, an event gets fired off. So E, what we want to do is set the message to e.target.value. Basically means this e.target.value means whatever the user just typed in, right? So let's go ahead and hit save now, and you should know that it's working by going ahead and typing in. That's awesome. Now you can see the username comes in there. So if I was to change the username at this point, Papa React 123, hit save, look, it changes everywhere with alongside my avatar. Very reactive, right? And there we go, we go back to our Guilfoyle, right? It looks really good, right? So at this point, when we click the button, I want to basically go ahead and say send message, and I'll create that function in a second. But as we're in a form, I want to make the type of this button be submit. This means that if I hit enter, so if I basically type in, we need to create the send message function, right? So I'm going to say const send message, oops, no, const send message equals, it has event as an argument, which is basically going to say, right, if I go ahead and hit save now, if I type in, hit enter, see how the page refreshes? That's because we're in a form and we submitted the form. But what we need to do is e.prevent default, e.prevent default, okay? And then we go ahead and hit save. And at this point, now if I hit enter, it doesn't go ahead and freak out, okay? So it looks a lot better already at this point. We want to protect our code though, right? If the user has no message, right? If there is no message that has been entered in, we want to return the operation, right? So that's actually pretty cool, but I'm going to show you, explain it to you, right? Return statement is not allowed, right? If a user return, that's interesting. Why is it not allowed? Oh yeah, I've got it here. There you go. So at this point, if there is no message, stop the execution. So if the user hasn't entered a message and I hit enter, I don't want anything to go to Moralis, right? But if they have got a message, then what I need to do is add the message into the Moralis database. We call this off-chain data, right? Now, many people may get confused and be wondering, well, don't you want to push it to the Ethereum blockchain? Well, if you do that, guys, it's not free to push content onto the blockchain. You have to pay something called a gas fee. The gas fee is essentially what pays for people to go ahead and verify the transaction that you just went ahead and did, which is putting the message into the network. That's expensive for Ethereum, right? Many of you may know that it's kind of an expensive gas fee at times. $100, $50 per message. That's going to be crazy. So what we typically do is we have these off-chain databases where we store things like the messages. That's a really great use case. If you did want to have an actual, decentralized storage mechanism, which Moralis is working on, by the way, I've been told by Ivan, then you can use something like Polygon, which is going to be a hell of a lot cheaper gas fees, and then you can have a kind of a chat forum like that. That's another option, but this is called off-chain, and we combine that with on-chain sort of verification, authentication, all other stuff. Remember, if you imagine if you had a marketplace, you could still have on-chain transactions where people buy and sell NFTs and all that stuff. All that kind of stuff happens, right? Really nice. So at this point, what we need to do is we need to prepare Moralis's message. So the way we do that is we create something called a Moralis object, right? So in this case, I'm going to create a messages object. And this is basically going to define the structure that it goes into the database as. So in this case, I'm going to say Moralis, and you can see I pulled in the generic Moralis object, Moralis.object, right? .extend, right? Extend messages, right? Now at this point you can see Moralis object extend messages, and what I'm doing here is I'm basically creating like a table in the database for messages, right? This is what I'm prepping for, and then what I do is I get an instance of that class. So this is similar to this, basically on the lines of class-based programming. So we basically get a messages instance. So we say messages equals a new messages. Okay, that basically has given us a nice shaped object that we can then go ahead and update or push over to Moralis, right? So what we're going to now do is say messages dot, right? And what we can do here is we can save, and what this does is it's going to save it into the database inside of the messages table, right? Because we've defined that structure. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save some information inside there. Now I'm going to go ahead and save the message itself, which is the message that we have. Right? I'm going to save the username of the user who sent the message. Now I can get this by saying user.getUsername, right? And then I'm going to get the Ethereum address. Okay, so the Ethereum address. In this case, we can use the, I think that's actually a function. Yeah, get Ethereum. No, it's not a function. I don't think it is. It's very similar to that, but I don't think there is one, right? So you can say get, and what we're actually going to do here is I want to store the Ethereum address. And the reason being is I'm going to use that as a way to check if you sent it before or not. So we've got the Ethereum address over here as well. So we've got the user's username, the user's Ethereum address. And then once we go ahead and save it, it's a promise, okay? So this means we have a then that kicks off afterwards. So if you do want to do something with the then afterwards, you can go ahead and do it at this point, right? So this would give you the message back, and you can go ahead and do something with the message, right? But this is basically an indicator that the message was sent. Now, I'm not too fussed with really what's going to happen afterwards. In fact, all I want to do is go ahead and actually catch an error. So in this case, what we can do is we can actually chain in a error, which comes back in a slightly different way to what we're used to. It's actually going to come back as an error like so. Right, so we're going to say message, and if there is an error, we're going to go ahead and say the save failed and show an error, right? Console log the error. But at this point, you can actually go ahead and do something a bit more cool. You can say message sent successfully, but you may not want to go ahead and have it kind of, you know, be a bit crazy up in there, right? Now you can, yes, Peter, you can use async await. Right, so if you want to use async await, go for it. Again, I do this just to show you guys different ways of doing things. Now, when I type in and send a message, I want it to scroll to the bottom of the messages, right? So the way I do that is I go back to my messages, and I now need to basically have a reference to the end of the messages. So where it says you're up to date, Papa Fam, I'm going to create a reference there, and I'm going to call it end of messages reference. End of messages reference, and this is basically a big pointer that I'm going to basically go ahead and say scroll to that. So what we're going to do is create a reference. So I'll say const end of messages ref equals use ref, and we give it an initial value of null. Oops. And then what we can do here is go ahead and say control spacebar, and like so, right? So this is going really awesome, guys. We've got a reference, we've gone ahead and connected it to the end of messages message. So what we're now going to do is, where I've got the send message function, I'm going to pass that reference through, right, as a prop. So I'm actually going to pass my reference through, so that way I can access it inside of send messages. So here it comes through the props. We can use the ES6 destructuring to break apart the props object, get the end of messages ref inside of it. And what I want to do is when I send a message, I actually want to go ahead and scroll the user in a certain way. The way I do that is after the message is sent, after it over here, I'm going to go ahead and say end of messages dot current dot current, and that basically goes to the current thing that it's pointing at, which is that end of messages. And I'm going to say scroll into view. And it's a very handy function that we can use. And what you can do here is you can pass in a nice little additional attribute called behavior smooth. And what that will do is, as I send the message, it will just scroll down nicely. As I keep typing in messages, it scrolls down with me. That's really nice as a user experience, right? So there we go. And the final thing I want to do is go ahead and reset what's inside of here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. I'll say set the message to be empty. Right, there we go. Now, let's go ahead and test this, Papa Fam. So what I'm going to do is open up my table right now. Go ahead and I'll do half and half. Hit refresh, hit refresh. As you can see in my database, I don't have any messages right now. I am signed in as a user, but here I'm going to say, hey guys, what is up? Hit enter now. And as you can see, if I refresh my database, we will now have a messages table which has a new message inside of it, and it has an object ID, it has a message, hey guys, what is up, and we have the username of the person who sent it, and we have the Ethereum address. Now the reason why I saved the Ethereum address is because your Ethereum address will never change. You cannot change it once you have it. You can only get a new wallet, but your username can change. So we're going to use the Ethereum address as your ID to be able to determine if you're the sender or the receiver in just a sec. Okay, hope that's clear. So in this case, it's looking really good. I think we're going at a pretty good pace. All right, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and pop that back over there. Pop this in like so. So at this point, we've got the actual functionality of the messages working, so we can actually begin to pull in the messages. So I'm going to go over to my messages right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and start prepping this out. So we can use something really nice called use Moralis query from React Moralis. And what I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to go ahead and actually use it. Now, if you want to see the documentation, feel free to go to the React Moralis docs by Googling it. You guys can see it over there. So we're going to go ahead and use this. And what you can do here is you get the 3 objects back, right? Or 3 items back. You get the data, you get a loading state, and you get an error state. And the way you use it is you say use Moralis query. Now inside of use Moralis query, what you do is you target a field. So what I'm going to say here is target the messages. Now be careful, guys, this is case sensitive. As you can see here, it's a capital M. That should be capital as well. So what I'd recommend is you store it in a constant and then you share the constant around. I'm not going to show you today, but you can easily do that with a variable and share it around, okay? Now that's the first thing. The second thing is we get the query, right? Now the query is essentially going to basically allow us to have any kind of filter or any kind of sorting mechanism that we want when we're fetching the data. So what I can do is I can say, okay, query, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say query, I'm going to do add ascending, sorry, was this query dot ascending, right? And I'm going to go ahead and do it by created at, right, created at, and as you can see here, we automatically get a created at timestamp. So I'm going to go ahead and sort it by ascending order. You can see created ascending is now going to be sorted, and then I'm also going to do something pretty interesting, right? So this can go 2 ways, right? I want to create a chat app, and you guys don't have to have this, by the way, but I want to create a chat app where it's going to go ahead and say something like it's only going to show the last 15 minutes duration, right? So, or it could be like the last half an hour worth of chat. I don't want to show the last like a couple of days ago, right? I want to show up to very frequent stuff. So at this point, what I want to do is, so we've got here only show messages from the last 15 minutes. So we've got min duration is 15, right? So this is going to go ahead and show the messages for the last 15 minutes. What we do is we go ahead and query for it. So I'm going to go ahead and say only show the messages which are greater than, and the field that we're going to query on is created at, right? And the second argument we given is the value that we want to go ahead and compare against. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say go ahead and create a new date, and I'm going to use something like this. I'm going to say get the date dot now, right, minus 1000 to get the milliseconds, times it by 60 to go ahead and get, I forgot what the actual thing we're calculating is, but the point is do this, right? And what this does is basically this will go ahead and get, this is the date from now, like 15 minutes before. So what I'm saying is if the created at is greater than 15 minutes ago, don't show it, right? So only show us things which are less than 15 minutes ago. So only show the chat for the last 15 minutes, right? So that should be pretty good, right? At this point, it looks really nice. I'm gonna go ahead and chuck in some water. Amazing stuff, guys. We got Nigeria in the house. What's up, dude? So we've got greater than, created at, and awesome stuff. And as you can see, I've done it in a nice way. So all you have to do is tamper with that. It will change the value, right? And the final thing we now need to do is, after this created out, we're going to do a comma for the next argument. You can see dependencies. Well, in this case, we don't have any dependencies, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do a comma there. And the final thing is very cool. We got the options. Now, what's really nice about this React Moralis is we can pass in an attribute called live, and we can say it's true. What this does is it gives me a real-time listener for this information. So if I hit save now, this is a real-time listener, very similar to how we do it in Firebase, whereby it's going to be going ahead and pulling in the messages in a real-time fashion. Destroy that thumbs up button if you're enjoying this right now. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and show you right now that this actually pulls in some data. So if I do console log data and we go to our app, do a command F12, right? So now you can see we get the array pull through. Now, as you can see, this has an array of 0 at the moment. It's got some messages with attributes, and you can say, hey guys, what is up? And if I go ahead and say, yo, what's going on, Papa Fam? Right, hit enter. Now what we see is a second message comes in, the real-time listener, and we can see here that if we got attributes, you can see, yo, what's going on, Papa Fam? And that is underneath because that's the order that we wanted. You can see my Ethereum address again. Feel free to send some shit there. It's all good. All right, but you can see we've got all of this stuff coming through now. So we've got our messages. We now need to show it on the screen. So at this point, what we're now going to do is we're going to go ahead and show that stuff on the screen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, for the messages here, I've got a div already which says each message. So inside of this div now, I'm going to say data.map, right? So data.map, and this allows me to go ahead and show things up on the screen. So we'll say, go for every message that comes back. So the one that I just showed you, I want to do a return. Now, remember, this is the bit where people go wrong. Do parentheses here, which means a direct return. And I'm going to go ahead and return a message component. Now, each time you do a map, you should have a key. This is how React understands that I don't need to re-render every item on that list, so the messages. I'll need to change the one which has a different key that came in. So what we do is we make the key, it's going to be the message.id. That's going to be each individual message got its own ID. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pass the entire message through as a prop, and we're going to access it inside this component. We don't have a message component. So if I hit save, it's going to break. I'm going to go ahead and create a message component right now. We're doing amazing for time, guys. Underscore RFCE to go ahead and pop this in. Command B to put it there. H1 say I am a message. Hit save, right? I'm going to import this in over here. We've got Siri kind of flying in. There you go. Go away. Right, and I'm going to do a, there we go, import it from message, hit save, and now you can see I am a message pops in. Now I want to obviously go ahead and make this the actual content. So I'm going to go ahead and customize these to look like these beautiful messages over here, but right now I want to go ahead and firstly have some spacing between them, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add a class name here, and the class name is going to be spacing the Y components inside the children a value of 10, and as you can see they get a bit of spacing. I'm going to give a padding of 4 around the entire container as well. That way it gets a nice bit of spacing. There you go. Looks really nice. So at this point, let's click on message. And what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to go ahead and pull out the message from the props. So props are here. We destructure, we get the message, right? So this comes through as so. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually pull in Moralis, because we're going to be using Moralis now to get the user. So I'm going to go ahead and get the user's information beforehand. And we're going to use this to determine if the user sent that, sent that message or not, right? So we got the user pulling in over on the message. Now what I want to first do is actually go ahead and just show a message, right? So rather than H1, I'm going to change it to a P tag. I'm just going to go ahead and simply say message.get, and remember this is a Moralis object, that's why I can use this get function. I'm going to say get the actually what we can do here is I need to go ahead and say get message, right? This will be get message, hit save, and look at that, guys, we've already got the chat flying in, which is awesome, really nice. So at this point we've got the P tag, which is looking pretty good. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and have some variable which tells me if it's the user's message or if it was someone else that sent it. So the way I do it is I'm going to create a variable called isUserMessage. Right, so this can basically tell me if it's my message or if it's someone else's. So I'm going to say message.get the username. Right, so I'm going to get the username. And then I'm also going to go ahead and say if that is equal, oh sorry, I'm not going to do a username, so I'm going to do the Ethereum address, right? Get the Ethereum address. If that is equal to the user.get the Ethereum address, then it's going to be true, right? So if this is the same as the message address, then we know that it's going to be that you sent that message, because your Ethereum address will never change. It'll be the same address that your message will have. This is a perfect way of identifying if it is our message. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to surround the message itself in a div. Right, so over here, I'm going to surround the message in a div. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to apply some classes, right? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say it's a flex box. I'm going to say it's a space of x of 4 and a padding on the x-axis, space x of 4, padding on the x-axis of 3, padding on the y-axis of 3, which means we can just do a padding of 3. And then we're going to say rounded LG. Right, and this is already looking a bit decent. We've got the p tag over here, which we're not going to style right now, but I'm going to go ahead and say the following. So I'm actually going to make this curly brackets and change it to string interpolation, and I'm going to go ahead and add in a custom ternary operator. I'm going to say if it's a user message, right, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say that the following style should get applied. We're going to say it's rounded border right of none, which will give it a nice kind of, you see on the right hand side, the border right bottom is not cornered, and that basically seems like a bit of a speech bubble. So we're going to go and say border right none, and then I'm going to say background should be pink of 300 if it's your message. And if it's not your message, so if else is basically what's happening here, we'll say the opposite. We'll say rounded border left none with a background of blue, right, background blue, and I'm going to say 400. Now you can see these are my messages, hence why it's coming in with the pink, and you can see it would be coming from the right hand side. Looks really, really nice, right? Nice stuff. Right, so let's go ahead and check this out. Right, so at this point, let's go ahead and check this out. I'm confused. Okay, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and we've got the p tag there. Then we're going to go ahead and now we don't want it to kind of be this max width, right? We're going to go to the div at the top, and I'm going to go ahead and say class name equals. I'm going to do a string interpolation here because I want to do some cool stuff. I want to say flex items end. Oops, flex items end. And as you can see already, that cuts the string, right? And what we're going to say is space between these components should be an x of 2, because I'm going to have a few images and things like that in there, and it should be relative, as I'm going to have some absolutely positioned items in there. Now I'm going to do a sort of optional, if this is there, apply this style, and that's going to say if there is a user message, if it's your message, then I'm going to only do an if, not an else. That's why we've got the and. I'm going to say justify end, and what that does is it pushes it to the side if it's my message. Okay, that's looking pretty cool. We're getting very close to the point that we need. Let's go ahead and see space. There we go, space x of 2. Thank you. All right, so at this point we've got it looking pretty nice, right? Pretty close. We want the avatar now, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw in the avatar above this div, right? So I've got this here. I'm gonna go ahead and say a div, and remember we created that avatar, right? So at this point I've got the avatar that I can pull in, reusable components for the win, and at this point it's gonna do that, right? That's not what we want, is it? Yeah, so the first thing I want to do is I want to pass in the username. Now this is, remember I said if you pass in the username, it will show the avatar for that user. So what I'm going to do here is I want to say message.get username, and that's going to basically work for that user. In this case, we are the sender, hence why it comes in. And for this one, I'm going to say class name height and width of 8. I'm going to make it relative, because remember that avatar is using layout fill. So relative height of 8, width of 8. Width of 8, there we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, there we go, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to do a nice little ternary operator here, or it's going to be an optional. So let's go ahead and pop this in like so. And I'm going to say, okay, if, right, it's the user's message, if it's the user message, I'm then going to go ahead and apply the following. Now, this is basically like a flexbox rule, but you can do something called order. And what I'm going to say is if it's your message, then it should be at the front. So it should be order.last, which will basically pop it to the other side of the component, right? So you see there, it goes into the other side. It's because it becomes the order last. Even though this is present beforehand, you can rearrange the order with order in Flexbox, right? That's how we do that. It's very handy to do that. ML2 gives it a margin left, so it's going to go ahead and only apply that little gap. And now it looks like, look, Guilfoyle is sending a message. Papa React is sending it out. Nice, all right? This is good. This is very good. Now the final thing we need is it to say Papa React to the bottom and the timestamp. So what I'm going to now do is I'm going to have underneath this div, I'm going to have the timestamp, so a time ago stamp, right? And then we're going to go ahead and have underneath that a p tag, which is going to have the username. So here I'll say message.getUsername. All right, that's going to be awesome. And you can see it says Papa React. And what I'm actually going to do there is style it up. I'm going to say class name equals absolute positioning, right? I'm going to say a minus bottom of 5. Remember, we're relative to the container, hence why it's not going to fly off. Absolute minus bottom 5. Text should be extra small, right? And then again, I'm going to do ternary operator. So we're going to go ahead and pop this in. I always forget ternary, tertiary. I don't care, but that, you know what we're doing, right? So say is user message. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, if it is your user message, make it the text pink, right? So text pink 300. Otherwise, we're going to go with text blue 400. All right. Now you can see, nice, we get that. And I will show you guys in just a sec how to go ahead and test this one, right? So if you actually want to test it, you can actually sort of force this to be in the right state, right? So the way I do it is I do Command Shift N to open up incognito. And then what you would have to do here, guys, is go ahead and actually prep it so that you can have your MetaMask extensions. You'd have to go to your settings and enable the MetaMask extension for incognito. So make sure you do that. And now what I'm going to do is change my address over on this browser to a separate address. And it's very easy to create a second wallet. You just go into here, create another wallet, and it will do it for you. And then we go over to localhost. And you can see I won't be logged in the incognito browser. I'm going to log into the separate wallet. So it's a different dev account. I'm going to sign in. And as you can see here, I'm a different user now. And look how it's on the other side now. So if I change the username here, and let's imagine this was Jay. Right, so I'm going to say Jay over here. So Jay's on the left. Jay, I'm sorry, you got earrings, dude. Look, Jay's got some pretty cool earrings. Right. So in this case, you got Papa React on the right. And then if I go, hey, what's up, Sonny? So what's up, Sonny? Hit save. You can see, look at that. We've got a chat going on. This is dope. Really nicely working, and we have this chat flow. So if I'm Papa React, it's on the right. On his side, it's the opposite, right? Looking pretty cool. So at this point, what we're going to do is have the timestamp as well, right? So that looks nice. That's how you test it, right? I thought I'd show you guys how you can do it. So the timestamp, what we're going to use is time ago, right? So we're going to use a library called time ago, which is time ago React. So guys, I'll show you guys this library. So if you go to time ago React, you can see it's an npm module. So you guys can feel free to check out their GitHub as well. Command J to open up our terminal. Split the terminal is what I like to do. If you look into the documentation, you do an npm install time ago React. So I'm going to install that into our terminal to bring it into the project. And they've got a use case. Now I'm going to show you how to use it, so do not worry. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Right, so at this point, what we do is we're going to import it from the top of the file. Like so. So I'm going to pop it in at the top over here. Bam. Like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the following. So Command J, hide my terminal. It's where we have the comment. I'm going to say time ago. Like so. And then as the argument here, I'm going to go ahead and say date time equals message dot created at, which is an attribute on the message. Now, as you can see, it says 21 minutes ago or 1 minute ago. It automatically starts kicking in. All right. Time ago, I'm going to go ahead and style this now. So oops, don't do that. We're going to go ahead and say class name equals, and we're going to go ahead and do backticks. So I want to go ahead and do some string interpolation here. So I'm going to say this should be text. Oops, not text. And because we're using Tailwind version 3, we have something called the just-in-time compiler. So we can pass in custom values. So I'm going to make it super small with 10 pixels. And that makes it very, very small. You can see it changed over there. And then I'm going to go ahead and say italic. Right, and I'm going to make it gray. So text gray of 400 should be good. And then what I want to do is I want to actually change it. So if it's the user message, right? If it's the user message, then what I want to do is go ahead and apply that order last trick that I did last time. So order last, and then I'll say it should be padding right of 1 as well. Now you can see what is happening here, right? So if we did this, oh, actually I've messed that up. I've done if it's the user message, order first, order first. You see, I've done it the wrong way. Order first, pops it the other way. There we go. Look at that, guys. Looks really beautiful. We have this working on both sides. So if I was to send a message now saying hi there, so hi Jay, and hit this, enter, you can see it moved down as well. Look at this, look, hello world, look, hello world. Enter, bam, it's even moved down with me. So looking really, really good. All right, so you guys can see, look at this, works so nice. right? And this will work with as many users as you want, right? You guys can deploy it, test this out, have a bunch of fun, and test it with your friends, get them to come to your website, do what you need to do, right? This is looking really, really clean. Now at this point, I think we are literally done. I think I surprised myself there. I think we're actually done. So if I go ahead and refresh, look at this. Amazing. Yeah, we're actually done. Wow. Okay, sick. So I want to show you guys where I added in that padding. Remember, I added in that padding in the beginning. So if I go up to the top, right, I added in this random padding that you might have thought, why is he adding that here? And the reason being is because when I scroll down, I want to have an extra bit of gap at the bottom. You see this? I don't want it to be stuck to the bottom, in which case you're going to be fixed and it's going to be very hard to see. So we give that additional padding to allow for that scrollability aspect. So overall, that is pretty damn cool, right? Smash that thumbs up button if you're enjoying this so far, right? You guys are absolutely been incredible. At this point, what you will now do is deploy this app. So we've already connected it to Vercel. If you did yesterday's video, you would have pushed it to a GitHub and you would have gone ahead and deployed it with Vercel. Now to easily re-trigger the deployment, what we can now do is simply push to GitHub. So I'm going to show you this in live action. So I'm going to go over to Vercel. So what I did there is I'll go ahead and I'll undo this and I'll show you again. So if I go ahead and unstage my files, right? So back to the beginning, what I was saying, if I do git status, right, you'll see they're red, right? So if I do git add all and git status again, now you'll see they're green. That means that we've now gone ahead and added that to the commit, right? So at this point, if I do git commit -m, we're going to commit and we're going to say chat functionality complete, right? Hit enter, and now it's pushed it into it. I'm gonna say git push to go ahead and push it to my GitHub repo. Now, pay attention, look at my Vercel. If I go ahead and hit the refresh button, it's gonna go ahead and pick up that new deployment, and look what it's doing. It's literally a pipeline. It's gonna now go ahead and build that application and deploy it. So we have it open here right now. This is the old one, but watch when it deploys, it will literally go ahead and deploy this app. So go to overviews. You should have the same domain, so you should be able to resubmit your homework in the same fashion, right? So if we go back over here, we should be able to see in deployments that this will be built in just a second, right? It's now ready. Awesome. So if I go to my Metaverse app and I refresh, let's wait for it. It's going to be cached as well, right? So chances are, there we go. Hey, nice, dude. Look at that, pulled in from our database. You guys can actually feel free to do it as well now, but I'm going to be careful with how much I show on the screen, right? So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the chat right now. And you guys can feel free to head over there, log in and sort of chat. Look at that, Elon Musk. Hello, YouTube. What's up, man? That is awesome. We're going to go ahead and see who pops in. We're going to leave it up for a little bit longer and we're going to see what everyone's saying. But Elon Musk is in the chat, apparently. That is pretty cool. And you can see he's got their own little custom avatar URL. And we'll see who pops into that chat first and gets in there, right? But guys, yeah, once you've done this, it's Frank. What's up, dude? Look how cool that is, man. It's working. It's using Web3 tech. Elon Musk says, I love the metaverse. I'm going to say, what's up, dude? Hey, dude. Hey, dude. There you go. And look at that. We've got a full-on chat happening right now. There we go. Everyone's running in. Sonny, you're a legend. Hey, what's up, legend? That's what I'm talking about, guys. And how crazy, right? This is the power of Web3. Did you guys have to do any crazy install? No. You just clicked login. Your wallet popped up and bam, you are in. You could change your username. You could use the application. What an incredible build, guys. That was one of our first experiences into the Web3 world. Now you have an awesome Web3 messaging DApp to add to your portfolio. So this is a great start for you if you want to go ahead and dive into the world of blockchain technology and how it can work with websites and development. As always, guys, if you liked the video, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and let us know down below your favorite part of today's build. Once you've done that, go ahead and push this to your portfolio and showcase it to the world so that you can become a web developer or a Web3 developer in your software career. As always, guys, it's your boy Sonny, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.